Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What Ifs. So in this video, we will see what if Ben 10 found the Nemetrix instead. Predator Ben 10. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The hunters watched the summer night buzzed with the sounds of crickets as 10-year-old Ben Tennyson crashed through the underbrush, his heart pounding in his chest. Grandpa Max and his cousin Gwen were still setting up camp, but Ben couldn't wait to explore. Something about the woods always called to him, the promise of adventure, the unknown lurking behind every tree. Grandpa said not to wander off, doofus. Gwen's distant voice echoed through the trees. Ben rolled his eyes. Whatever, he called back, pushing deeper into the forest. I'm not a baby. The last rays of sunlight filtered through the canopy overhead, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Ben jumped over a fallen log, his sneakers skidding in the dirt as he landed. This was what summer was all about: freedom, adventure, and absolutely zero homework. A flash of red light streaked across the sky, catching Ben's attention. At first, he thought it was a shooting star, but it moved too erratically, zigzagging between the trees before crashing into a clearing up ahead. Whoa! Ben's eyes widened as he sprinted toward the impact site, his curiosity overriding any sense of caution. Please be a UFO, please be a UFO. The clearing was bathed in an eerie red glow. At its center lay a small crater, smoke rising from its edges. Ben slid down the embankment, his hands and knees getting dirty in his eagerness to see what had fallen from the sky. In the middle of the crater sat a strange device, unlike anything Ben had ever seen. It wasn't much bigger than a wristwatch, but instead of a normal face, it had a red hourglass symbol set against a black background. The edges were jagged and predatory looking, like teeth ready to bite. Cool. Ben reached out, his fingers hovering inches from the device. It seemed to pulse, almost like it was alive. Some kind of weird watch. The moment his fingertips brushed against the cold metal, the device sprang to life. It leapt up, snapping around his wrist like a bear trap. Ben yelped, falling backward as he tried to shake it off. Get off! Get off me, he shouted, tugging at the device. It didn't budge. If anything, it seemed to tighten, the metal warming against his skin. The red hourglass symbol began to glow more intensely. Ben stumbled back to his feet, still trying to pry the device off. Grandpa Max, he called out, suddenly wishing he hadn't wandered so far from camp. Gwen. The device's interface lit up, displaying silhouettes of strange creatures, all teeth and claws and horns. Before Ben could make sense of what he was seeing, the dial twisted on its own, settling on one particular silhouette. What's happening? Ben's voice cracked as the device seemed to sink into his skin, merging with him. Red energy coursed up his arm, spreading across his entire body. The transformation hit him like a truck. His bones cracked and reformed, growing larger, denser. His skin hardened into armor plates, red and black. His head stretched forward, his jaw extending into a massive maw filled with crushing teeth. His hands became powerful claws, and a tail sprouted from his spine. When the transformation finished, Ben wasn't Ben anymore. He had become a massive creature that looked like a cross between a rhino and a dinosaur, with thick red plates covering his body and a head designed for ramming and crushing. But the physical change wasn't the most terrifying part. What truly frightened Ben was the rush of new instincts that flooded his mind, primal, predatory urges that threatened to drown out his human thoughts. He could smell everything in the forest, hear the heartbeat of every small animal, and felt an overwhelming urge to hunt, to crush, to destroy. A rabbit darted across the clearing, and without thinking, Ben, or the creature he had become, charged. The ground shook beneath his massive feet as he smashed through trees, focused solely on catching his prey. Benjamin Tennyson. A familiar voice cut through the hunting frenzy. Standing at the edge of the newly expanded clearing was Gwen, her eyes wide with terror as she stared at the monster that had been her cousin moments ago. Behind her, Grandpa Max was rushing to catch up, his face pale in the moonlight. Something in Ben's human consciousness recognized them, but the predator saw only potential threats, or prey. He let out a roar that shook leaves from the trees and pawed at the ground, ready to charge again. "Ben, if that's you in there, you need to calm down." Grandpa Max's voice was steady despite the fear evident in his eyes. He stepped in front of Gwen protectively, holding up his hands. "Focus on my voice, son." The predator instinct screamed for Ben to attack, to establish dominance, but the human part of him fought back. This was his family. He couldn't hurt them. He wouldn't. Ben backed away, shaking his massive head as he struggled for control. Every instinct in this new body wanted to hunt, to chase, to feed. But he wasn't an animal. He was Ben Tennyson. "Gee, Grandpa." The word came out as a guttural growl, barely recognizable as speech. "Help." "That's it, Ben. Fight it," Max encouraged, cautiously approaching. "Whatever's happened to you, we'll figure it out together." Ben focused on his grandfather's voice, using it as an anchor to his humanity. Slowly, the predatory urges began to recede, pushed back by his human consciousness. He sat back on his haunches, still dangerous but no longer on the verge of attacking. "What is that thing?" Gwen whispered, peeking out from behind Grandpa Max. "I think it's Ben," Max replied, his expression troubled. "Ben, can you remember what happened?" Ben nodded his massive head, gesturing toward his wrist where the strange device had attached itself. It was now integrated into his transformed body, the red hourglass symbol visible on his chest. "A watch," Ben managed to growl. "Fell from sky. Jumped on me." Max's eyes widened in recognition. "That's not just any watch," he said gravely. "I've seen something like this before, during my plumber days, but never one like this." Before Ben could ask what his grandfather meant by plumber days, a searing pain shot through his body. The red symbol on his chest began to flash, and Ben roared in agony as his form destabilized. The transformation reversed itself, his body shrinking and softening until, with a final flash of red light, he was human again. Ben collapsed onto his hands and knees, gasping for breath. His entire body ached, and his mind still buzzed with predatory instincts that weren't his own. The device on his wrist pulsed once more, then went dormant, though it remained firmly attached. "Ben!" Gwen rushed to his side, helping him up. "Are you okay?" I think so," Ben said shakily, staring at the device on his wrist. "What just happened to me?" Grandpa Max knelt beside them, examining the device with a frown. "We need to get back to the rust bucket," he said firmly. "Now." "But what is this thing?" Ben asked, holding up his wrist. The device looked almost innocent now, like an oversized watch with a strange design. "It's alien technology," Max replied, his voice uncharacteristically serious. "And if it's what I think it is, we're all in serious danger." Back at the campsite, Ben sat at the table inside the rust bucket, Grandpa Max's old RV that had been their home for summer vacations as long as he could remember. Gwen sat across from him, alternating between concerned glances at Ben and suspicious looks at their grandfather, who was rummaging through an old trunk he kept locked under his bunk. "Spill it, Grandpa," Gwen finally said. "How do you know about alien technology? And what did you mean by plumber days?" Max sighed, straightening up with an old, leather-bound journal in his hands. "I wasn't always just a retired plumber," he admitted, sitting down beside them. "I used to work for an organization called the Plumbers, an intergalactic police force that dealt with alien threats to Earth." "What?" Ben and Gwen exclaimed in unison. "You were like a space cop?" Ben asked, momentarily forgetting about the device on his wrist. "Something like that," Max nodded, opening his journal. "And I've seen technology similar to what's on your wrist before, though never quite like this." He turned the journal around, showing them a sketch of a watch-like device, similar to the one on Ben's wrist but with a different design. The symbol was the same hourglass shape, but it was green instead of red, and the casing looked sleeker, less aggressive. "This is called the Omnitrix," Max explained. "It's a device created by an alien genius named Azimuth. It contains DNA samples of different alien species and allows the wearer to transform into any of them." "So this is like the Omnitrix?" Ben asked, looking down at his wrist. Max shook his head. "No, I don't think so. The coloration is different, and the transformations." He frowned. "The creature you turned into looked like a crabdozer, a natural predator of pyronites, one of the alien species in the Omnitrix." "A predator?" Gwen repeated, looking worriedly at Ben. "I think what you're wearing might be some kind of counterpart to the Omnitrix," Max continued. "Something designed to contain the DNA of predator species instead of the usual aliens." Ben looked down at the device with new interest. "So I can turn into alien predators? That's awesome." "No, Ben, it's dangerous," Max said firmly. "Did you feel how those predatory instincts nearly overwhelmed you? This device wasn't meant for humans. The predatory nature of these species is too powerful, too primal." Ben remembered the hunger, the urge to hunt, to destroy. He shuddered. "Yeah, it was intense. Like I wasn't me anymore." "Exactly," Max nodded. "Which is why we need to figure out how to get it off you before." A sudden beeping from the device interrupted him. The dial twisted on its own again, cycling through various silhouettes before stopping on one that looked vaguely humanoid but with a hunched back and long arms. "Oh no," Ben gasped, backing away from the table. "Not again. Ben, focus." Max grabbed his grandson's shoulders. "Whatever you turn into, remember who you are. Fight the instincts." Red energy engulfed Ben once more. His body twisted and changed, growing taller, lankier. His arms elongated until his knuckles nearly touched the ground, and sharp claws sprouted from his fingers. His face stretched into a muzzle filled with sharp teeth, and his eyes turned yellow with vertical pupils. Coarse black fur covered his body, and his legs bent backward at the knees, giving him a werewolf-like appearance. "Whoa," Ben growled, his voice deeper and rougher. "What am I now?" "I think, that's a Vulpamencer," Max said, eyes wide. "But not like any I've seen before. More predatory." Ben felt the instincts surging again, but this time he was prepared. He fought back against the urge to hunt, to track, to tear. He was Ben Tennyson, not some mindless beast. "I can control it," Ben said, though his voice came out as a series of growls. He realized he couldn't form words in this form, but somehow Max and Gwen seemed to understand him anyway. "Be careful, Ben," Gwen warned, keeping her distance. "You still look like you want to eat me." Ben shook his head, trying to convey that he was in control. The transformation had enhanced his senses beyond anything he could have imagined. He could smell everything, the lingering scent of dinner, the distinct odors of Gwen and Grandpa Max, and even traces of animals that had passed by the RV hours ago. But more than that, he could sense things beyond normal perception, heat signatures, electrical impulses, the very vibrations in the air. It was overwhelming but exhilarating. A new scent caught his attention, something metallic and alien, approaching fast. Ben turned toward the door of the RV, hackles rising as he growled. "What is it?" Max asked, immediately alert. Ben couldn't explain with words, but he pointed toward the door just as something slammed into the side of the rust bucket, rocking the entire vehicle. "We're under attack!" Max shouted, grabbing a strange-looking gun from his trunk. "Gwen, stay down." Ben bounded to the door on all fours, his predatory instincts now working in his favor. Whatever was out there was a threat to his family, his pack, and he would protect them. He burst through the RV door, launching himself at the attacker, a hovering drone with multiple appendages and a red eye at its center. Ben's powerful jaws clamped down on one of its arms, tearing it clean off. The drone buzzed angrily, firing a laser that singed Ben's fur but didn't penetrate his thick hide. Two more drones appeared from the darkness, surrounding Ben. His enhanced senses picked up their movements before they attacked, allowing him to dodge their lasers with supernatural agility. Ben! Grandpa Max called from the RV doorway, taking aim with his weapon. Duck! Ben dropped flat as Max fired, hitting one of the drones with a pulse of energy that short-circuited it instantly. The drone crashed to the ground, sparking and twitching. The remaining drones focused their attention on Max, recognizing him as a threat. They fired simultaneously, forcing Max back inside the RV for cover. Ben snarled, leaping at the nearest drone. His claws tore through its metal shell, ripping out wires and circuits. The drone sputtered and fell, but the last one managed to get behind Ben, firing a capture net. The net wrapped around Ben, the fibers tightening painfully. He thrashed and roared, trying to break free, but the more he struggled, the tighter it became. Ben! Gwen's voice came from the RV. To his surprise, she ran out despite Max's protests, grabbing a fallen branch. With a determined yell, she swung it at the drone, knocking it off balance. "Leave my cousin alone, you stupid robot," she shouted, hitting it again. The drone recovered quickly, turning its attention to Gwen. It prepared to fire, its red eye glowing ominously. Something snapped in Ben. The predator and human parts of his consciousness aligned in perfect harmony, protect the pack. With a surge of strength born from pure rage, he tore through the net, shredding it like paper. In one fluid motion, Ben leapt over Gwen, placing himself between her and the drone. He roared, a sound so primal it echoed through the forest, sending birds flying from their roosts. The drone hesitated, its sensors registering the change in Ben's demeanor. That moment of hesitation was all Ben needed. He pounced, his jaws closing around the drone's central eye, crushing it completely. The machine sparked and died in his grip. As the adrenaline faded, Ben dropped the destroyed drone and turned to Gwen, concerned he might have scared her with his ferocity. To his surprise, she wasn't afraid. "That was, actually kind of cool," she admitted, though she kept a safe distance. "Thanks for saving me, doofus." Ben made a sound that might have been a laugh if his vocal cords had been human. Grandpa Max emerged from the RV, surveying the destroyed drones with a grim expression. "Someone knows you have the device," he said, kneeling to examine one of the drones. "These are recovery units, designed to capture and retrieve alien technology." Ben growled questioningly, tilting his head. "I don't know who sent them," Max answered, somehow understanding Ben's unspoken question. "But I have a feeling this is just the beginning." As if on cue, the symbol on Ben's chest began to flash again. The transformation reversed, and Ben found himself human once more, exhausted but exhilarated. "That was incredible," he exclaimed, examining his now human hands. "Did you see how I took those drones apart? I was like a super alien predator." "Ben, this isn't a game," Max said sternly. "Whatever this device is, it's dangerous, both to you and anyone around you. The predatory instincts nearly made you attack us earlier." "But I controlled it the second time," Ben argued. "I could feel the instincts, but I wasn't overwhelmed by them. And I used them to protect us." Max and Gwen exchanged worried looks. "Maybe," Gwen said hesitantly, "maybe Ben has a point. He did save me from that drone." "That doesn't change the fact that someone is after this device," Max replied, gesturing to the watch on Ben's wrist. "And they're willing to attack us to get it." Ben looked down at the device, feeling a strange connection to it despite the dangers. "What do we call it, anyway? If the other one is the Omnitrix, what's this?" Max considered for a moment. "Based on what I've seen, I'd call it the Nemetrix. Nemesis meaning enemy or rival, fitting for a device that contains the predators of the aliens in the Omnitrix." "The Nemetrix," Ben repeated, liking the sound of it. "And I'm not giving it up." Not when I can use it to protect people. Max opened his mouth to argue, then sighed, recognizing the stubborn set of his grandson's jaw. We'll discuss this more in the morning. For now, let's clean up this mess and get some sleep. I have a feeling we're going to need our strength in the days ahead. As they gathered the drone wreckage, none of them noticed the pair of yellow eyes watching from the darkness at the edge of the forest. The observer silently retreated, having seen everything. Morning came too quickly for Ben, who had spent most of the night tossing and turning, his dreams filled with hunting and chasing. He woke feeling strangely energized despite his lack of sleep, a lingering effect of the Nemetrix's influence on his system. Rise and shine, sleepyhead. Gwen called, already dressed and eating breakfast at the table. Grandpa wants to run some tests on your weird watch. Ben groaned, sitting up in his bunk. Can't a guy get some sleep after fighting alien drones? Not when he's wearing potentially dangerous alien technology, Max replied, setting a plate of what appeared to be blue eggs in front of Ben. Eat up. You'll need your strength. Ben eyed the eggs suspiciously. What are these supposed to be? Quail eggs with a touch of spirulina, Max answered cheerfully. Excellent protein source. Ben pushed the plate away, reaching for a box of cereal instead. I'll stick with sugar bombs, thanks. As he poured his cereal, Ben noticed the Nemetrix on his wrist had changed slightly overnight. The metal seemed to have bonded more seamlessly with his skin, and the red hourglass symbol looked brighter, more vibrant. Grandpa, look, he said, holding out his arm. The watch is different. Max examined it with concern. It's integrating with your DNA. He said. Adapting to your human physiology. That's troubling. Why? Isn't that a good thing? Ben asked, taking a bite of cereal. Maybe it means I'll have better control over the transformations. Or maybe it means the predatory DNA is altering you on a genetic level, Max countered. Ben, we need to find a way to remove it before the changes become permanent. Ben frowned, suddenly protective of the device. No way. This is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. Why would I want to give it up? Because it's turning you into a monster. Gwen suggested, looking up from her book. No, it's turning me into a hero, Ben retorted. You saw how I handled those drones last night. Imagine what I could do against real bad guys. Max sighed, recognizing the argument was going nowhere. At least let me run some tests. We need to understand what we're dealing with. Reluctantly, Ben agreed. After breakfast, Max set up various scanning devices he'd pulled from hidden compartments in the rust bucket, equipment that further confirmed his mysterious past as something far more than a simple plumber. How many alien doohickeys do you have in this RV? Ben asked as Max attached sensors to his arm around the Nemetrix. Enough, Max replied cryptically. Now hold still. The scanner beeped and whirred, collecting data on the strange device. Max's expression grew increasingly troubled as he read the results. According to this, the Nemetrix contains DNA samples from at least 10 different predator species, he explained. Each one evolved specifically to hunt the aliens contained in the Omnitrix. So I can turn into 10 different alien predators? Ben asked excitedly. Sweet. Ben, focus, Max said sternly. The scanner is also picking up anomalous energy readings from your own DNA. The Nemetrix is affecting you even when you're not transformed. That got Ben's attention. What do you mean? How? I'm not sure yet, Max admitted. But your baseline adrenaline levels are elevated, and there are changes to your frontal lobe activity, the part of your brain that controls impulse and aggression. Gwen looked up sharply. Are you saying that thing is making Ben more aggressive? As if he wasn't annoying enough already. Ben was about to snap back with a retort when he realized, she was right. He had been feeling different since finding the Nemetrix. More alert, more aware of his surroundings. More territorial. I do feel different, he admitted quietly. Like everything is sharper somehow. And I keep having these urges. What kind of urges? Max asked, concerned. Ben struggled to explain. Like, I wanted to chase that rabbit yesterday. Not because I was hungry or anything, just because I wanted to hunt it. And this morning, when those hikers walked past our campsite, I felt, I don't know, like they were intruding on my territory. Max and Gwen exchanged worried glances. That's the predator DNA influencing your human form, Max said grimly. It's affecting your basic instincts, making you more aggressive, more territorial. Like an apex predator. But I'm still me, Ben insisted. I'm not going to suddenly start attacking people or anything. I hope not, Max said. But we need to be careful. The more you use the Nemetrix, the stronger its influence might become. A sudden alarm from one of Max's devices interrupted their conversation. Max rushed to check it, his expression darkening. We've got company, he announced, pulling up a radar display that showed multiple signals approaching their location. A lot of company. Ben jumped to his feet, already feeling the adrenaline surge through his system. More drones. And something else, Max said, pointing to a larger signal moving more slowly behind the others. Something big. They rushed outside to see a swarm of drones, at least a dozen, hovering at the edge of the clearing. Behind them stood a large mechanical walker, its design reminiscent of a giant spider. In the walker's cockpit sat a small, blue, crab-like alien with an oversized cranium that pulsed with electrical energy. I believe you have something that belongs to me, the alien called out, his voice high-pitched and imperious. The Nemetrix prototype is not a toy for primitive Earth children. Who are you calling primitive, crab face? Ben shouted back, instantly defensive. I am Dr. Psychoboss, the alien declared, tapping his cranium with one of his pincers. The greatest scientific mind in the galaxy, and the creator of the device you've so rudely appropriated. Grandpa Max stepped forward protectively. That device is dangerous, he called out. It wasn't designed for human use. Obviously, Psychoboss sneered. The Nemetrix was designed for non-sentient application only. The predatory instincts are too powerful for any thinking being to control without being overwhelmed. Ben looked down at the Nemetrix on his wrist. Non-sentient? You mean like, animals? Precisely, Psychoboss confirmed. The prototype was meant to be worn by a hunting beast, directed by its master. A human child using it directly is, unexpected. And extremely dangerous. Well, I've been controlling it just fine, Ben retorted, though that wasn't entirely true. Psychoboss laughed, a grating, clicking sound. Perhaps for now, child. But each transformation leaves traces of predator DNA in your system. Soon, you won't know where the beast ends and you begin. Ben felt a chill run down his spine, but he pushed the fear aside. This alien wanted to take the Nemetrix, and something in Ben, something primal and possessive, refused to let that happen. I'm not giving it up, he declared, his hand hovering over the dial. This is my watch now. Then I shall take it from your corpse, Psychoboss hissed, raising a pincer. Drones, attack. The swarm of drones surged forward, weapons deployed. Max pushed the kids back toward the rust bucket, drawing his own weapon. Ben, get Gwen to safety, he ordered, firing at the approaching drones. But Ben had other ideas. He twisted the dial on the Nemetrix, cycling through the available transformations until he found one that felt right for the situation. It's hero time, he shouted, slapping down on the dial. The transformation was faster this time, less painful. Red energy enveloped him, reshaping his body into something sleek and predatory. When it cleared, Ben had become a tiger-like creature with no eyes, just a wide mouth full of teeth that wrapped around its head. Its body was covered in red and black stripes, and it moved with liquid grace. Whoa, Gwen gasped. What is that thing? That's a Penuncian, Max identified, momentarily distracted from the battle. Predator of the Splixen species. They're known for. Before he could finish, Ben demonstrated exactly what Penuncians were known for. With a roar, his body split into multiple identical copies, each one a perfect duplicate of the original. In seconds, there were 5 Penuncians standing where one had been, all connected to Ben's consciousness. The drones hesitated, their programming not equipped to handle this unexpected development. Ben took advantage of their confusion, his duplicates pouncing on the drones from multiple directions simultaneously. Metal tore and circuitry sparked as the Penuncian duplicates ripped through the drone swarm like paper. Dr. Psychoboss backed up his walker, clearly alarmed. Impossible, he sputtered. A human mind shouldn't be able to maintain coherence across multiple bodies. Ben couldn't respond verbally in this form, but his actions spoke for him. His duplicates finished off the last of the drones and converged on Psychobo's walker, surrounding it from all sides. "Stay back, you savage beasts!" Psychoboss cried, firing energy blasts from his walker's weapon systems. Ben's duplicates dodged the blasts with preternatural agility, leaping onto the walker's legs and beginning to tear at the joints and hydraulics. The mechanical spider wobbled dangerously as its support structure began to fail. "Enough of this!" Psychoboss shouted, hitting an emergency control. The walker's central pod detached from the legs, rocketing upward on hidden thrusters. Ben's duplicates leapt after it, but couldn't reach the escaping scientist. "This isn't over, human child," Psychoboss called down as he retreated. "The Nemetrix will consume you, and when it does, I'll be there to collect it from your mindless husk." As Psychoboss disappeared into the sky, Ben's duplicates merged back into a single form. The Nemetrix symbol on his chest began to flash, and moments later, he was human again, dropping to one knee in exhaustion. "Ben!" Gwen and Max rushed to his side, helping him up. "That was..." Ben panted, intense. "But awesome. Did you see how I made copies of myself?" "Yes, and it was quite impressive," a new voice commented from the edge of the clearing. They all turned to see a tall, humanoid figure step out of the shadows. He was reptilian in appearance, with blue scales and a skull-like face. He wore armor that seemed designed for hunting, with various weapons and trophies attached. "Who are you?" Max demanded, raising his weapon. The newcomer held up his hands in a non-threatening gesture. "I am Kyber, the greatest hunter in the galaxy. And I've been watching you, Ben Tennyson." Ben tensed, ready to activate the Nemetrix again despite his fatigue. "Are you here for the watch too?" "Initially, yes," Kyber admitted. "The Nemetrix was to be mine, a tool to help me hunt the most dangerous prey in the universe." "Well, you can't have it," Ben declared, his hand hovering protectively over the device. Kyber chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. "I've changed my mind," he said, his yellow eyes fixed on Ben. "You've done something I thought impossible, maintained your sentience while using the Nemetrix. Most interesting." "What do you want, then?" Max asked suspiciously. "To observe, for now," Kyber replied. "The boy has bonded with the Nemetrix in a way I didn't think possible for a sentient being. I want to see what he becomes." "I'm not becoming anything," Ben insisted. "I'm still me, just with awesome alien predator powers." Kyber's expression was unreadable, but his tone was amused. "Are you certain of that, young Tennyson? Have you not felt the changes? The heightened senses? The territorial instincts? The hunger for the hunt?" Ben's silence was answer enough. "The Nemetrix is changing you," Kyber continued. "Reshaping you into something new, neither human nor predator, but something in between. A hunter unlike any the galaxy has seen before. Is that supposed to scare me?" Ben challenged, though his voice wasn't as confident as he'd hoped. "Not at all," Kyber replied. "It intrigues me. Which is why I'll be watching your progress with great interest." With that, Kyber activated a device on his wrist, and his body shimmered before disappearing completely, his voice lingering in the air. "Until we meet again, young hunter. The clearing fell silent, save for the crackling of damaged drones and the distant call of birds. Okay, that guy was seriously creepy, Gwen commented, shivering slightly. Max looked troubled. Kyber is one of the most notorious hunters in the galaxy. If he's interested in you, Ben, that's not good news. Ben stared at the spot where Kyber had vanished, feeling a strange mix of fear and excitement. The predator part of him, the part influenced by the Nemetrix, recognized Kyber as a fellow hunter, someone who understood the thrill of the chase. So now we've got a crazy crab scientist and a skull-faced hunter after Ben, Gwen summarized. Great summer vacation so far. We need to move, Max decided, already heading back to the rust bucket. If Psycho Boss can track the Nemetrix, this location isn't safe anymore. As they packed up camp, Ben couldn't stop thinking about what both Psycho Boss and Kyber had said. Was the Nemetrix really changing him? And if so, was it something to fear, or to embrace? The rust bucket rumbled down the highway, putting distance between them and the site of the attack. Ben sat by the window, watching the landscape rush by while absently turning the dial on the Nemetrix. Each alien silhouette that appeared seemed to call to him, promising new powers, new hunting abilities. Stop playing with that thing, Gwen said, looking up from her laptop. Grandpa said the more you use it, the more it affects you. I'm not using it, I'm just looking, Ben replied defensively, though he did stop turning the dial. Besides, I saved us back there, didn't I? Yes, you did, Max acknowledged from the driver's seat. But Gwen has a point, Ben. Every transformation seems to leave trace amounts of predator DNA in your system. We don't know what the long-term effects might be. Ben frowned. So what, I'm supposed to just not use it? Even when there are bad guys attacking us? Max sighed. No, that's not realistic. But we need to be smart about this. Use it only when necessary, and try to stay in control while transformed. I am in control, Ben insisted. Mostly. That's what worries me, Max muttered. The mostly part. A news alert on Gwen's laptop interrupted their conversation. She turned up the volume, and a reporter's voice filled the RV, breaking news from Greenville, where a massive forest fire threatens to consume thousands of acres of protected woodland. Fire crews are battling the blaze, but high winds are pushing it toward a popular camping area that may still have people trapped inside. Authorities are calling for immediate evacuation of all campgrounds in the vicinity. The screen showed aerial footage of a massive fire raging through a dense forest, smoke billowing into the sky. That's not far from here, Max noted, checking the GPS, just a few miles up ahead. Ben's eyes were fixed on the screen, particularly on the small figures visible at the edge of the fire, families running from the flames, fire crews trying desperately to contain the blaze. We have to help them, he said, his voice determined. Ben, this isn't something we can handle, Max argued. The fire department can't reach everyone in time, Ben cut him off, pointing at the screen where a group of campers was shown surrounded by advancing flames. But I can. Before Max could protest further, Ben was already turning the dial on the Nemetrix, searching for the right transformation. He stopped on a silhouette that looked vaguely amphibian, with a massive mouth and powerful limbs. Ben, wait. Gwen called, but he had already slammed his hand down on the dial. The red energy washed over him, transforming him into a huge, toad-like creature with thick, red-armored skin. Its mouth took up most of its head, lined with crushing teeth, and powerful legs that looked designed for leaping great distances. What is that? Gwen asked, backing away. From the suddenly cramped confines of the RV, it looks like a mucilator, Max identified. Predator of the Methanosian species. They hunt swampfire's kind. Ben tried to speak but found his vocal cords couldn't form human words in this form. Instead, he made a series of croaking sounds that somehow Max and Gwen seemed to understand. Fire, resistant, Ben managed to convey. Help. Before Max could stop him, Ben crashed through the RV door, his massive form landing on the highway with an impact that cracked the asphalt. With powerful bounds, he leapt toward the billowing smoke visible just a few miles ahead, each jump carrying him hundreds of feet. "Ben!" Max called after him, but it was too late. He sighed, turning the RV toward the fire. "We'd better go after him." Ben landed at the edge of the forest fire, his amphibian form naturally resistant to heat and flames. The fire crew stared in shock as the massive alien creature bounded past their barricade, straight into the inferno. Inside the burning forest, Ben's predatory senses came alive. He could detect movement, heat signatures, the sounds of humans calling for help beneath the roar of the flames. The Mucilator form was perfectly adapted for this environment: fireproof skin, powerful legs for mobility, and a mouth that could. Ben realized with a start what his instincts were telling him to do. The Mucilator hunted by consuming flames and then spraying a thick, fireproof mucus to trap its prey. It was a bizarre hunting strategy, but one that could save lives right now. Bounding toward the nearest pocket of trapped campers, a family with 2 small children huddled beneath a rocky overhang, Ben began to inhale. The flames were drawn into his massive mouth, fueling the chemical processes inside his alien body. He felt the mucus building up, ready to be deployed. The family screamed as the massive creature approached, but Ben had no way to tell them he was there to help. Instead, he simply acted, spraying a thick coating of fireproof slime over the entire area, smothering the flames instantly. The father pushed his children behind him, brandishing a stick in a futile gesture of defense. "Stay back," he shouted, his voice trembling. Ben held up his hands in what he hoped was a non-threatening gesture, then pointed toward the path he had cleared through the fire. He made a series of sounds that he hoped conveyed, "Follow me," and started back the way he had come, looking over his shoulder to see if they understood. After a moment's hesitation, the family realized the alien creature had saved them from the flames. They followed, staying close as Ben continued to consume fire and create a safe path toward the evacuation zone. Over the next hour, Ben repeated this process again and again. Leap, locate, consume fire, create safe passage, lead survivors out. The predatory instincts of the Mucilator actually helped, enhancing his ability to track and find humans trapped in the blaze. By the time he returned to the fire line for the 5th time, the fire crews had realized he was helping. They directed him toward areas where people might still be trapped, working with the strange alien creature rather than against it. Ben found a group of teenage campers trapped on a rocky outcropping, flames approaching from all sides. He bounded up to them, consuming the nearest flames before spraying his fireproof mucus to create a safe zone. "What the heck is that thing?" one of the teens shouted. "Who cares? It's saving us," another replied. Ben led them back toward safety, but as they neared the evacuation zone, a burning tree crashed down directly in their path. Without thinking, Ben caught the massive trunk, his alien strength allowing him to hold it up long enough for the teens to scramble underneath to safety. The effort cost him, however. As the last teen cleared the fallen tree, Ben felt the Nemetrix symbol on his chest begin to flash. His transformation was timing out, just as he was surrounded by flames with no clear path out. The red light washed over him, and suddenly he was Ben again, a 10-year-old human boy in the middle of a forest fire with no protection. "Oh, man," Ben coughed, the smoke immediately burning his lungs. Bad timing. He tried to activate the Nemetrix again, but the dial was unresponsive, still recharging after the extended transformation. The heat was intense, the air nearly unbreathable. Ben dropped to his knees, trying to stay below the worst of the smoke. "Ben," a familiar voice called out. Through the smoke, Ben saw Grandpa Max in a firefighter's protective gear, rushing toward him. Behind him, Gwen wore a smaller version of the same gear. "Grandpa." Ben called back, his voice weak from the smoke. Max reached him, scooping him up without breaking stride. "I've got you, son. Let's get out of here." As they rushed back toward the fire line, Ben looked over Max's shoulder at the burning forest. Despite the danger, despite nearly getting himself killed, he felt a sense of satisfaction. He had saved lives today. The Nemetrix might be dangerous, but in the right hands, his hands, it could be used for good. They broke through the last of the flames to cheers from the fire crews and the people Ben had rescued. The family he'd saved first rushed forward, the mother's eyes filled with tears. "That's him," she exclaimed, pointing at Ben. He turned back into a boy. "What are you talking about, ma'am?" Max asked, playing innocent. "This is just my grandson. We came to help with the evacuation." The woman looked confused, but in the chaos of the fire and rescue operations, she didn't press the issue. Soon, paramedics were checking Ben for smoke inhalation while fire officials debriefed Max. "You okay, doofus?" Gwen asked, sitting beside Ben as a paramedic placed an oxygen mask over his face. Ben nodded, lifting the mask briefly. "Did you see me out there? I was awesome." Gwen rolled her eyes, but there was a hint of pride in her expression. Yeah. You were almost barbecue, too." "But I wasn't," Ben countered. "And I saved those people. That's what heroes do." Gwen's expression sobered. "Is that what you are now? A hero?" Ben looked down at the Nemetrix, which was slowly recharging, the red hourglass beginning to glow again. "I think I could be. With this. Even if it changes you?" Gwen asked quietly. "Psychoboss said the predator DNA is affecting you. What if you become something, not Ben anymore?" Ben didn't have an answer for that. The question had been nagging at him too, especially after feeling how natural the predatory instincts had seemed while transformed. He had used them to save lives today, but what about tomorrow? Or the next day? Grandpa Max joined them, his expression a mix of pride and concern. "The fire chief says you saved at least 20 people who would have been trapped otherwise," he told Ben. "They're calling you the Red Alien Hero on the news already." "Sweet." Ben grinned, his concerns temporarily forgotten. "I've got a superhero name." "This isn't a game, Ben," Max reminded him, though his tone was gentler than before. "But I have to admit, you did good work today. You controlled the transformation, used it to help people. So you're not mad?" Ben asked hopefully. "I'm concerned," Max corrected. "But also proud. If you're determined to keep the Nemetrix, then we need to work together to make sure you use it safely and responsibly." Ben nodded eagerly. "I will, I promise. No transforming unless it's an emergency." Max smiled, ruffling Ben's hair. "Good. Now let's get you back to the rust bucket for some rest. It's been a long day." As they walked back to the RV, Ben felt eyes on him. He turned, scanning the tree line beyond the fire barricade. For just a moment, he caught a glimpse of yellow eyes watching from the shadows, Kyber, observing from a distance. The hunter nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement, before disappearing back into the forest. Ben shivered, not from fear but from a strange sense of kinship. He and Kyber were both hunters now, even if they hunted different prey. Ben hunted dangers, threats, opportunities to help. Kyber hunted, well, Ben wasn't sure what Kyber hunted, but he had a feeling he might find out soon enough. The Nemetrix pulsed on his wrist, warm against his skin. It was changing him, there was no doubt about that. But maybe, just maybe, it was changing him into something better, a protector, a hero. A predator, yes, but a predator with purpose. Deep in the forest, far from human eyes, Kyber watched the rust bucket drive away. His ship was cloaked nearby, advanced technology keeping it hidden from Earth's primitive detection systems. "The boy shows promise," he said to himself, reviewing footage he had captured of Ben's transformations. Raw, untrained, but promising nonetheless. A communication alert sounded from his wrist device. Kyber activated it, and a hologram of Dr. Psychoboss appeared. "Report, Hunter," the cerebrocrustacean demanded. "Did you retrieve my prototype?" Not yet, Kyber replied calmly. The situation has evolved. The human child has bonded with the Nemetrix in a way neither of us anticipated. Impossible. Psychoboss clicked his pincers angrily. No sentient mind can control the predatory instincts without being overwhelmed. And yet, he does, Kyber countered. Not perfectly, not completely, but far better than your calculations predicted. The boy used the Musculator transformation to rescue humans from a forest fire today, maintaining enough control to use its ability strategically. Psychoboss fell silent, his oversized cranium pulsing with electrical energy as he processed this information. Fascinating, he finally admitted. The human DNA must be acting as a buffer somehow, allowing partial integration without complete mental degradation. What are your orders? Kyber asked, though his tone suggested he had already made his decision. Continue observation, Psychoboss decided. I want data on every transformation, every adaptation. The boy is now an unexpected test subject for the Nemetrix project. And if another party becomes involved? Kyber inquired. The child's grandfather is Maxwell Tennyson, former plumber and associate of Azimuth. Psychobo's eyes narrowed. Azimuth, he hissed the name like a curse. That arrogant Galvan thinks his Omnitrix is the pinnacle of transformation technology. My Nemetrix will prove otherwise, even if through this unexpected development. Then I shall continue to monitor the boy, Kyber concluded. And intervene only if necessary. As the communication ended, Kyber turned back toward the direction the rust bucket had gone. Hunt well, young Tennyson, he murmured. Grow stronger. Become the worthy prey I suspect you might be. With that, he vanished into the shadows, a predator biding his time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Chapter 2, Instinct and Control. Ben, for the last time, stop growling at people. Gwen hissed, elbowing her cousin sharply in the ribs. Ben blinked, suddenly realizing he had been staring down an elderly man who'd accidentally bumped into him at the gas station convenience store. The man hurried away, casting nervous glances over his shoulder. I wasn't growling, Ben muttered, though the rumble in his throat said otherwise. He grabbed a soda from the cooler and headed to the counter, avoiding eye contact with the cashier. It had been 2 weeks since he'd found the Nemetrix, and things were changing. The device had fully bonded with his wrist now, the metal seamlessly integrated with his skin. More concerning were the behavioral changes, territorial responses, heightened senses, and occasional predatory impulses that bubbled up without warning. Outside, Grandpa Max was filling up the rust bucket, studying a map spread across the hood. He looked up as the kids approached. Everything okay in there? He asked, noticing Ben's scowl. Ben was being weird again, Gwen said before Ben could answer. He practically scared some old guy to death just for bumping into him. I didn't mean to, Ben protested. It just happened. Max's expression softened with concern. The Nemetrix influence is getting stronger. We need to figure out how to help you control it, Ben. I am controlling it, Ben insisted, gesturing to the watch. I haven't gone alien in 3 days, even when that jerk at the campground threw a football at my head. That's true, Max acknowledged. But these behavioral changes when you're human are concerning. The predator instincts seem to be leaking through even without transformation. Ben kicked at the dusty ground, unwilling to admit how right his grandfather was. The truth was, he felt different, like something wild was stirring just beneath his skin, waiting for a chance to break free. So where are we headed next? He asked, changing the subject. Max tapped the map. Place called Copper Canyon. Small desert town about 100 miles from here. Sounds boring, Ben grumbled. Why there? Because, Max said, folding up the map, there have been reports of strange disappearances in the area. People vanishing without a trace, usually at night. Ben's interest immediately peaked, his earlier irritation forgotten. Disappearances? Like alien abductions? Maybe, Max replied, though his tone suggested he had his suspicions. Or something else entirely. Finally, some action. Ben grinned, already feeling the familiar rush of excitement at the prospect of using the Nemetrix again. Despite the complications, he couldn't deny how much he loved transforming, loved the power it gave him. Gwen rolled her eyes. "You're way too happy about people disappearing." "I'm happy about helping people," Ben corrected, though the predatory gleam in his eyes suggested otherwise. The hunt was calling to him again. Copper Canyon lived up to its name, a small town nestled against rust-colored cliffs, baking under the desert sun. As the rust bucket rolled down the main street, Ben pressed his face against the window, taking in the dusty storefronts and handful of locals hurrying about their business despite the scorching heat. "Doesn't look like much," he commented as they passed a boarded-up gas station. "Appearances can be deceiving," Max replied, pulling into a diner parking lot. This town used to be a thriving mining community until the copper veins dried up. Now it's barely hanging on. The diner was surprisingly busy for a dying town. Locals and what appeared to be a handful of journalists occupied most of the tables, their conversations creating a low buzz of activity. The trio found an empty booth near the back, sliding onto the cracked vinyl seats. "I'll get us some food," Max said, heading to the counter. "You two stay put." The moment Max was out of earshot, Ben leaned toward Gwen. "We should check out those caves in the canyon. Bet that's where the disappearances are happening." "Without telling Grandpa?" Gwen frowned. "Bad idea. Besides, you promised not to go alien unless absolutely necessary, remember?" "I'm not saying I'll go alien," Ben argued, though they both knew that was exactly what he was thinking. "Just reconnaissance. In and out, no one even knows we were there." Gwen was about to object when a conversation from the next booth caught her attention. "Third person this month," a man was saying, his voice hushed but urgent. "Sheriff's saying it's just people skipping town, but Maria Chavez was born here. No way she'd leave without telling anyone." "And the weird lights in the canyon?" a woman replied. "Everyone's seen M. Green flashes at night, strange noises. Government says it's nothing, but we all know better." Ben and Gwen exchanged glances, both thinking the same thing, definitely alien activity. Max returned with 3 plates balanced expertly on his arms. "Got us the house special," he announced, setting down what appeared to be green chili burgers. "Best in the state, according to the cook." Ben, for once, didn't complain about the unusual food. His mind was too focused on the mystery at hand. "Grandpa, we just heard people talking about weird lights in the canyon and more disappearances. When are we going to check it out?" "After we eat and get settled," Max replied calmly. "I've booked us rooms at the motel down the street. We'll do some proper investigation tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Ben protested. "But people are disappearing now." "Ben," Max's voice took on a warning tone. "This isn't a game. We need to approach this methodically. I've already contacted some old plumber connections for information." Ben sulked, taking an aggressive bite of his burger. To his surprise, it was delicious, the spicy green chilies perfectly complementing the meat. His enhanced senses, another side effect of the Nemetrix, picked up every flavor note, making the experience almost overwhelming. As they ate, Ben couldn't help noticing the nervous glances from other patrons. At first, he thought they were looking at Grandpa Max, who was questioning the waitress about the disappearances. But when a young boy at a nearby table quickly looked away when Ben caught his eye, he realized it was him they were watching. "Why is everyone staring at me?" he whispered to Gwen. Gwen glanced around subtly. "Maybe because you're growling at your food like a wild animal." Ben froze mid-bite, suddenly aware of the low rumble emanating from his throat. He forced himself to stop, embarrassed. "I didn't realize I was doing it again." "This is getting worse," Gwen said, her voice dropping to ensure only Ben could hear. "You're acting like a predator even when you're not transformed." "I can't help it," Ben admitted, pushing his plate away despite still being hungry. It's like there's this other side of me now. And it's getting harder to keep it in check. Gwen's expression softened. For all their bickering, she genuinely cared about her cousin. We'll figure it out, doofus. That's why we've got Grandpa Max, remember? He knows about this alien stuff. Ben nodded, trying to take comfort in her words. But a part of him, the growing predatory part, wondered if even Grandpa Max could help with what he was becoming. The desert night was cool, a welcome relief after the scorching day. The Copper Canyon Motel was a single-story building with rooms arranged in an L shape around a small, unimpressive pool. Ben lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Grandpa Max's steady breathing from the other bed. Sleep wouldn't come. His enhanced senses picked up every sound, the distant howl of a coyote, the skittering of a lizard across the roof, the hum of the old air conditioner. But more than that, the call of the hunt pulled at him. Those caves in the canyon, the mysterious disappearances, something was out there, and every instinct in his body urged him to track it down. Carefully, Ben slipped out of bed. He changed quickly into jeans and a t-shirt, stuffed his feet into sneakers, and eased the door open just enough to slip outside. The cool night air hit his face, carrying scents his increasingly sensitive nose could identify: dust, creosote bushes, distant water. He hesitated, glancing at the room where Gwen was sleeping. She'd be furious if she knew he was sneaking off alone. But the pull was too strong to resist. He had to investigate, had to follow this predatory urge to hunt down whatever was causing the disappearances. The canyon wasn't far, maybe a mile from the motel. Ben jogged through the sleeping town, keeping to the shadows more out of instinct than necessity. The streets were deserted at this hour, everyone safely locked behind their doors. The canyon opened up before him, a massive gash in the earth illuminated by the full moon. Copper-rich rocks gleamed dully in the moonlight, and the mouth of several mining tunnels were visible along the walls. Ben paused at the edge, his senses alert for any sign of danger. A faint green glow emanated from one of the larger tunnel entrances about halfway up the canyon wall. Exactly like the weird lights the locals had mentioned. Jackpot, Ben whispered to himself, already searching for a path up to the tunnel. The climb was easier than it should have been. His body seemed stronger, more agile, his reflexes sharper as he navigated the rocky slope. Another Nemetrix enhancement, he supposed. Part of him was grateful, while another part worried about what these changes meant for his humanity. As he neared the tunnel entrance, the green glow intensified. Ben crouched at the opening, peering into the darkness beyond. The tunnel extended deep into the mountain, the glow emanating from somewhere around a bend about 50 yards in. Definitely alien tech, he muttered, recognizing the energy signature from his previous encounters. He was about to enter when a scraping sound behind him made him whirl around. Ben dropped into a defensive crouch, a growl rising in his throat. "Easy there, Tiger," a voice called from the shadows. Or should I say, alien freak. A figure stepped into the moonlight, a boy not much older than Ben, maybe 13 or 14. He had dark hair, pale skin, and a permanent sneer on his face. He wore a tattered black t-shirt and jeans with holes in the knees, completing the juvenile delinquent look. "Who are you?" Ben demanded, still crouched and ready to activate the Nemetrix if necessary. "Name's Kevin," the boy replied, casually leaning against a boulder. "Kevin Levin. And you're the kid with the freaky alien watch everyone's been talking about." Ben straightened up slightly, surprised. "People are talking about me?" Kevin laughed. "Dude, you turned into a giant fire-eating toad thing and saved a bunch of campers from a forest fire. It was all over the news. Red alien hero, they called you." Oh. Ben hadn't realized his heroics had attracted that much attention. "So what are you doing here?" Kevin's casual demeanor shifted slightly, his eyes flicking to the Nemetrix on Ben's wrist. "Let's just say I've got my own special talents, and I felt something interesting in this town. Something powerful." Turns out, it was you, or rather, that thing on your wrist. Ben's hand moved protectively over the Nemetrix. What do you know about it? Not much, Kevin admitted, pushing off from the boulder and taking a step closer. But I know power when I sense it. And that thing? It's off the charts. There was something about Kevin that set Ben's teeth on edge. The predator in him sensed a challenge, a rival entering his territory. He fought down the growl that threatened to escape his throat. You still haven't told me what you're doing here, Ben pressed, nodding toward the glowing tunnel. Kevin shrugged. Same as you, I guess. Checking out the weird light show. Figured it might be worth something. Worth something? Yeah, you know, alien tech. Sells for a lot to the right people. Kevin grinned, but there was something calculating in his eyes. But I'm thinking your watch might be worth even more. Ben's patience snapped. The predatory instincts, already heightened by the night and the hunt, surged forward. A growl erupted from his chest as he bared his teeth at Kevin. Stay away from my Nemetrix. Kevin's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with interest. Whoa, what's with the animal act? You're not even alien right now. Before Ben could respond, a brilliant flash of green light erupted from the tunnel, followed by a scream that was abruptly cut off. Both boys turned toward the tunnel entrance, momentarily forgetting their confrontation. Someone's in trouble, Ben said, already moving toward the light. Kevin hesitated, then followed. This I gotta see. The tunnel was old, shored up with timber supports that groaned with age. Mining equipment, decades old and rusted beyond use, lined the walls. The green glow grew stronger as they rounded the bend, revealing a chamber where the miners had hit a particularly rich vein of copper. But it wasn't copper that glowed green. In the center of the chamber stood a strange device, a circular platform surrounded by crystalline pylons that pulsed with energy. On the platform lay a person, unconscious or worse, their features indistinct in the harsh light. Standing over the prone form was a figure that was definitely not human. It was tall and insectoid, with a chitinous exoskeleton and multiple limbs that ended in what appeared to be surgical tools. What the hell is that thing? Kevin whispered, ducking behind a mining cart. Ben crouched beside him, his enhanced vision taking in details that would have been invisible to normal human eyes. Alien, he muttered. Looks like it's experimenting on that person. The alien chittered to itself, adjusting something on the platform that caused the green glow to intensify. The unconscious human's body convulsed, then began to change, features elongating and skin taking on a greenish hue. It's transforming them, Ben realized with horror. Making them into something else. Okay, that's messed up, Kevin said, backing away. I'm out of here. Ben grabbed his arm. We can't just leave. That's a person they're experimenting on. And what exactly are you gonna do about it, kid? Kevin challenged. That's a fully grown alien with tech I've never seen before. A smile spread across Ben's face as he held up his wrist, the Nemetrix glowing ominously in the darkness. I've got some alien tech of my own. Before Kevin could stop him, Ben activated the device, cycling through the silhouettes until he found one that felt right for the enclosed space. The red energy washed over him, transforming him into a creature that resembled a cross between a gorilla and a wolf, with powerful arms and legs, a maw full of teeth, and thick red fur covering its muscular body. Kevin stumbled back in shock. Holy! The alien at the platform whirled around at the sound, its compound eyes reflecting the green light as it focused on the intruders. It chittered in alarm, reaching for a weapon attached to its exoskeleton. Ben didn't give it a chance. With a roar that shook dust from the tunnel ceiling, he charged, moving with shocking speed for his bulky form. This transformation, what Grandpa Max had later identified as a Volpomancer, gave him heightened senses but removed his ability to see in the conventional sense. Instead, he perceived the world through a combination of smell, hearing, and a strange ability to sense heat and electrical impulses. The alien fired its weapon, a beam of energy that Ben sensed coming and dodged with preternatural agility. He leapt, powerful muscles propelling him across the chamber in a single bound. His massive paws slammed into the alien's thorax, sending it crashing into one of the crystalline pylons. The structure sparked and sputtered, the green glow flickering as the equipment sustained damage. The alien chittered in alarm, firing its weapon wildly as it tried to protect its technology. Ben circled the platform, keeping himself between the alien and its victim. The predatory instincts of the Volpomancer form urged him to go for the kill, to tear the threat to pieces with his powerful jaws. But Ben fought against those urges, channeling them into protective aggression instead. The alien seemed to realize it was outmatched. It reached for a device on its wrist, frantically manipulating the controls. "It's calling for backup," Kevin shouted from behind the mining cart. Ben couldn't respond verbally in this form, but he understood. He needed to end this quickly. With another powerful leap, he crossed the chamber, aiming directly for the alien's communication device. His jaws closed around the alien's arm with enough force to crunch through the exoskeleton. The alien shrieked in pain, dropping its weapon as it tried to free itself from Ben's grip. But the Volpomancer was too strong, too determined. With a savage shake of his head, Ben tore the communication device free, along with a significant portion of the alien's limb. Green fluid sprayed across the chamber as the alien stumbled back, clutching its injured appendage. It chittered something that sounded like a curse, then slammed its remaining hand against another device on its belt. A swirling portal opened behind it, a vortex of energy that distorted the air. The alien backed toward it, still facing Ben as if afraid to turn its back on the predator. Ben growled, preparing to charge again, but Kevin's voice stopped him. "Let it go. The machine is overloading." The crystalline pylons were indeed pulsing erratically, the energy becoming unstable. The unconscious person on the platform was starting to stir, their transformation seemingly halted mid-process, leaving them caught between human and whatever the alien had been trying to change them into. The alien took advantage of Ben's momentary distraction, diving through the portal which snapped shut behind it. Ben turned his attention to the platform, approaching cautiously. The person, a young woman, he now saw, was groaning, her features partially elongated and her skin mottled with patches of green. She looked like she was in pain. Kevin emerged from behind the mining cart, approaching the malfunctioning device with surprising confidence. "This thing's gonna blow," he announced, examining the controls. "The power core is destabilizing." Ben growled questioningly, nudging the unconscious woman with his snout. Kevin seemed to understand. "We've gotta get her out of here. You take her, I'll see if I can slow this thing down." Ben was surprised by Kevin's sudden helpfulness but didn't question it. He carefully maneuvered the semi-transformed woman onto his back, her weight insignificant to his powerful Volpomancer form. Kevin placed his hands on the control panel of the alien device, and something extraordinary happened. Energy seemed to flow from the machine into Kevin's body, his veins glowing briefly with the same green light. The erratic pulsing of the pylons slowed, becoming more stable. "I can absorb energy," Kevin explained, seeing Ben's confused expression. "It's my thing. Now go. I can't hold it forever." Ben didn't need to be told twice. With the woman secure on his back, he bounded down the tunnel toward the exit. Behind him, he heard Kevin's footsteps as the boy ran to catch up. They burst out of the tunnel just as a muffled explosion rocked the mountainside. A plume of green-tinged smoke billowed from the entrance, followed by a shower of rocks as the tunnel partially collapsed. Kevin emerged seconds later, covered in dust but grinning with exhilaration. That was close. Ben carefully laid the woman down on a flat area of the slope. The Nemetrix symbol on his chest was flashing, indicating the transformation was about to time out. Moments later, the red light washed over him, returning him to human form. "Whoa," Kevin said, watching the transformation with undisguised interest. "That's some trick." Ben ignored him, checking on the woman. Her breathing was steady, but her transformation remained incomplete. Patches of greenish, chitinous skin covered parts of her body, and one of her arms had elongated into a claw-like appendage. What were they doing to her? Ben wondered aloud. Looked like some kind of forced evolution experiment, Kevin replied, surprising Ben with his knowledge. I've seen similar tech before, black market stuff. They use it to create hybrid soldiers for interplanetary conflicts. Ben raised an eyebrow. And you know this how? Kevin shrugged, suddenly evasive. Let's just say I get around. The woman moaned, her eyes fluttering open. They were still human, though the scara had taken on a yellowish tinge. Where am I? She whispered, her voice raspy. What happened to me? You're safe now, Ben assured her, though he wasn't sure how true that was given her partial transformation. We rescued you from aliens. The woman's eyes widened as she caught sight of her transformed arm. She screamed, the sound echoing through the canyon. We need to get her to Grandpa Max, Ben decided. He'll know what to do. Kevin backed away, shaking his head. Count me out. I'm not sticking around for the authorities or whoever your grandpa is. He's not the authorities, Ben argued. He's an expert on alien stuff. He can help her, and maybe explain what's going on here. Kevin hesitated, eyeing the Nemetrix on Ben's wrist. It was clear he was still interested in the device, but now something else had caught his attention, the mystery of the alien experiments. Fine, he finally agreed. But only because I want to know what those bugs are up to. And if your grandpa tries to turn me in for anything, I'm gone. Ben didn't have time to wonder what Kevin might have done to be worried about authorities. The woman was becoming increasingly distressed, her partially transformed body trembling with shock and fear. Help me carry her, he instructed, and together they managed to support the woman between them as they made their way down the canyon slope and back toward town. Of all the irresponsible, reckless, dangerous things to do. Max paced the motel room, his face red with anger. Sneaking out in the middle of the night, confronting unknown alien threats without backup, you could have been killed, Ben. Ben sat on the edge of the bed, head hung in shame. Beside him, Kevin leaned against the wall, trying to look bored but clearly uncomfortable with the dressing down Ben was receiving. In the bathroom, Gwen was helping the transformed woman, Maria Chavez, they had learned, one of the missing locals, clean up and change into some spare clothes that might accommodate her altered physiology. I'm sorry, Grandpa, Ben said. Quietly. But I couldn't just ignore it. People were disappearing, and my instincts were telling me to investigate. Your instincts, Max repeated, his anger giving way to concern. The Nemetrix's influence, you mean? Ben nodded reluctantly. Yeah, I guess so. It's getting stronger, the urge to hunt, to track. But Grandpa, we saved Maria. And we found out aliens are experimenting on humans. Max sighed, sitting down beside his grandson. I'm not saying you didn't do a good thing, Ben. I'm saying the way you went about it was dangerous. And these changes in your behavior, the increasing aggression, the territorial responses, the hunting instincts, they're exactly what we've been worried about. Kevin, who had been silent until now, pushed off from the wall. Wait, what changes? What's happening to him? Max regarded Kevin suspiciously. And who exactly are you, young man? Kevin Levin, he replied with a cocky grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Energy absorber, drifter, and as of tonight, alien hunter, I guess. He helped me rescue Maria, Ben added quickly. He can absorb energy, Grandpa. He kept the alien device from exploding long enough for us to escape. Max's eyebrows rose. An osmosion? Here on Earth? Kevin stiffened. You know what I am. I know a lot of things, Max said cryptically. Including that osmosions are rare and that energy absorption can have side effects for your kind. Kevin's face darkened. Yeah, well, I've got it under control. The bathroom door opened, and Gwen emerged with Maria, who was now dressed in a loose-fitting t-shirt and sweatpants. The woman still looked terrified, holding her transformed arm close to her body as if trying to hide it. "Is she gonna be okay?" Ben asked, jumping to his feet. Gwen shook her head slightly. "The transformation seems stable, but we don't know if it's reversible. She says she was taken 3 days ago while walking home from the diner." Maria nodded, her voice trembling as she spoke. "They came out of nowhere, these bug things. Hit me with something that paralyzed me. I woke up in that cave, strapped to that machine." She shuddered. "There were others too. I could hear them screaming sometimes." "Others?" Max pressed gently. "How many?" "I don't know. Maybe 5 or 6. Maria wrapped her arms around herself. "They'd take people away after the experiments. Through some kind of portal. The ones that changed the most." Ben felt a chill run down his spine. "They're taking successfully transformed humans somewhere else. But why? What are they doing with them?" "Creating an army, most likely," Kevin suggested. "Hybrid soldiers are valuable. Human intelligence with alien physical capabilities." Max nodded grimly. "It fits with what we know of Lepidopteran expansion strategies. They're not physically imposing on their own, so they use bioengineering to create troops." "Lepidopteran?" Ben repeated. "Is that what those bug aliens are called?" "Yes, though these sound like a specific subspecies I encountered years ago," Max caught himself, clearing his throat. "In my plumber files, I mean." Gwen rolled her eyes at her grandfather's obvious slip. "So what do we do now?" "There could be more of those aliens, more labs. We need to contact the plumbers," Max decided. "This is beyond us, an organized alien incursion with human experimentation." Ben shot to his feet. "No way. We can handle this ourselves." The vehemence in his voice surprised everyone, including Ben himself. But he couldn't help it, the predator in him refused to give up the hunt, to surrender his territory to others. "Ben," Max said cautiously, "this isn't about proving yourself. There could be dozens of these aliens, maybe more. We need backup." "We have backup," Ben argued, gesturing to Kevin. "He's got powers too. Between him, me with the Nemetrix, and your plumber experience, we can find their main base and shut it down." Kevin seemed surprised to be included. "Wait, I never signed up for some alien-busting mission. I was just curious about the tech." "Scared?" Ben taunted. A challenging gleam in his eyes. Kevin bristled visibly. "As if. I just don't work well with others." "Boys," Gwen interrupted, "can we focus? There are people being turned into alien hybrids right now." The reminder sobered Ben, though the predatory urge to hunt these aliens down himself remained strong. He took a deep breath, trying to rein in his more aggressive impulses. "Okay, how about this?" he proposed. "We do some reconnaissance first, find out how many aliens there are and where their main base is. Then if it's too big for us to handle, we call in your plumber friends, Grandpa." Max considered this, looking at Maria, who was watching the exchange with fearful eyes. "I suppose we do need more information before mounting a proper response," he conceded. "But no engagement, just scouting. And you stick with me, Ben. No running off on your own." "Deal," Ben agreed quickly, though a part of him, the growing predator part, had no intention of holding back if he found more aliens experimenting on humans. "What about me?" Maria asked, her transformed hand flexing involuntarily. "I can't go home like this. My family, my job." Max's expression softened. "I have contacts who can help you, people who specialize in cases like yours. They might even be able to reverse the transformation." "Really?" Hope flickered in Maria's eyes. "Really," Max assured her. "But first, we need to make sure no one else ends up like you. That means finding these aliens and stopping them." Ben nodded, determination evident in his stance. The hunt was on, and this time, he wasn't just saving people after the fact, he was going to prevent others from being taken in the first place. Kevin pushed off from the wall. If we're doing this, we should get moving. Those bug freaks probably have another lab somewhere, and they'll be on alert now that we trashed one of their operations. First thing in the morning, Max corrected. We all need rest, especially Ben. The Nemetrix transformations take a lot out of you, even if you don't feel it immediately. Ben wanted to argue but couldn't deny the bone-deep exhaustion that was setting in now that the adrenaline was wearing off. Fine, morning it is. As they settled in for what remained of the night, Ben found his thoughts returning to the predator instincts that were becoming increasingly dominant. The way he'd growled at Kevin, the territorial response to the suggestion of calling in other plumbers, the fierce protectiveness he felt toward Maria and the other victims. These weren't entirely bad things, were they? The Nemetrix was making him a better hunter, a better protector. Yes, he was changing, but maybe that change was necessary, evolution, adaptation to become the hero Earth needed. With that thought in mind, he drifted into uneasy sleep, dreams filled with the thrill of the hunt. The morning brought new complications. Ben woke to the sound of excited voices outside the motel. He pulled back the curtain to see a crowd gathered around several official-looking black SUVs. "Grandpa," he called, shaking Max awake. "Something's happening outside." Max was instantly alert, moving to the window. His expression hardened as he recognized the insignia on the vehicles. Government Response Team. Someone reported the incident at the canyon. Ben felt a surge of territorial aggression. "They're trying to take over our hunt." "Our investigation," Max corrected firmly. "And they're doing their job, Ben. Unusual phenomena fall under their jurisdiction. But they don't know what they're dealing with." Ben protested. "They'll get slaughtered if they go up against those aliens unprepared." Max couldn't argue with that logic. "Get dressed quickly. We need to talk to them before they do something reckless." By the time they made it outside, the government agents had established a perimeter around the motel. A tall woman in a black suit approached them as they exited their room. "Maxwell Tennyson," she greeted Max, her tone suggesting they were acquainted. "I might have known you'd be involved in this." "Agent White," Max replied stiffly. "This isn't what it looks like." "It never is with you, Max," she said with a tight smile. "Care to explain why a mining tunnel exploded with traces of non-terrestrial energy signatures? Or why witnesses report seeing a red monster carrying a woman away from the scene?" Ben tensed, feeling exposed. The Nemetrix on his wrist seemed to pulse in response to his anxiety. "It's a long story," Max hedged. "But trust me when I say you're not equipped to handle this situation. We're dealing with a Lepidopteran incursion, possibly a pre-invasion force." Agent White's expression didn't change, but Ben noticed her posture stiffened slightly. "All the more reason for my team to take over, Max. We have protocols for these scenarios." "Your protocols will get your people killed," Max argued. "These aren't ordinary Lepidopterans. They're using advanced bioengineering to create hybrid soldiers." The agent's eyes narrowed. "And you know this how?" Max gestured toward their motel room. "We rescued one of their test subjects last night. A local woman, partially transformed. She's the only witness we have to their operation." This seemed to give Agent White pause. She glanced at the motel room, then back at Max. "I want to speak with this witness." "Only if you agree to coordinate with us instead of shutting us out," Max bargained. "My grandson and I have experience with these kinds of threats." At the mention of grandson, Agent White's gaze shifted to Ben, noticing him for the first time. Her eyes lingered on the Nemetrix, though from her perspective, it probably just looked like an unusual watch. "Your grandson," she repeated skeptically. "Max, you can't seriously be involving a child in this." Ben bristled at being called a child, a growl rising in his throat before he could stop it. Agent White's eyebrows shot up at the decidedly inhuman sound. Max placed a restraining hand on Ben's shoulder. Ben is uniquely qualified to help, he said carefully. And he's already involved whether we like it or not. Agent White studied Ben more closely, her trained eye noting the subtle changes in his posture, the predatory alertness in his gaze. There's something you're not telling me. A lot of things, Max admitted. But the most important one is that we need to work together on this. Your technology and manpower, our experience and knowledge. It was a standoff for a moment, neither side willing to back down. Finally, Agent White sighed. Fine. Provisional cooperation, pending my assessment of the situation. But if I decide this is beyond civilian involvement, even yours, Max, you stand down. Agreed? Agreed, Max said quickly, before Ben could object. They returned to the motel room, where Gwen was helping Maria eat some breakfast. Kevin was nowhere to be seen. Where's the other boy? Max asked, looking around. Said he needed air, Gwen replied, clearly disapproving. I think he took off when he saw the government cars arriving. Ben wasn't surprised. From what little he knew of Kevin, the boy seemed like the type to avoid authority figures. Agent White's attention was fully on Maria, her professional demeanor softening slightly at the sight of the woman's partial transformation. Ms. Chavez? I'm Agent White. I'd like to ask you some questions about what happened to you. Maria looked to Max for reassurance, and when he nodded, she began to recount her experience, the abduction, the lab, the experiments, and the other captives. They said something about Phase 1 being nearly complete, Maria added, a detail she hadn't mentioned last night. Like this was just the beginning of whatever they're planning. Agent White typed notes into a tablet as Maria spoke. When the woman finished her account, the agent turned to Max, this confirms our worst fears. If they're in Phase 1 of an operation, that suggests a larger scale effort to follow. We need to find their main base, Ben interjected, unable to contain himself any longer. The lab in the canyon was probably just an outpost. Agreed, Agent White said, surprising Ben with her ready acceptance of his input. My team has been mapping unusual energy signatures in the region. There's a significant hotspot about 15 miles from here, deep in the Copper Canyon wilderness. She pulled up a map on her tablet, showing a red blob of energy readings concentrated in a remote area. That's got to be their main lab, Ben said, leaning forward eagerly. The hunt was back on. Possibly, Max agreed. But we need a plan before we go charging in. Agent White nodded. My team is setting up a forward operating base at the canyon entrance. We'll coordinate from there. She stood, turning to Maria. Ms. Chavez, we have medical specialists who can examine you. They might be able to help with your condition. That's what Mr. Tennyson said, Maria replied hopefully. I'll arrange transport for you now, Agent White said, stepping outside to speak with one of her agents. The moment she was gone, Ben turned to Max, we can't let them take over, Grandpa. This is our hunt. There was that word again, hunt. Not mission, not investigation, but hunt. The predator terminology was becoming more natural to Ben by the day. Ben, Max said firmly, this isn't about territory or who gets credit. It's about stopping a potential alien invasion and saving lives. I know that, Ben insisted. But these government types will mess it up. They'll go in with guns blazing, and the aliens will either slaughter them or escape with their test subjects. We need to be smarter, more predatory. Gwen shot him a worried look. You're doing it again, Ben. Thinking like the Nemetrix. So what if I am? Ben challenged. The predator instincts are useful. They're what led me to find Maria in the first place. Before the argument could escalate, Agent White returned. Transport is arranged for Ms. Chavez. Now, about our operation, a tremendous explosion cut her off, the shockwave rattling the windows of the motel room. They rushed outside to see a column of smoke rising from the direction of the canyon where the government vehicles had been setting up their forward base. No. Agent White gasped, already running toward her car. They're attacking my team. Max grabbed his own keys. Ben, Gwen, with me. Now. They piled into the rust bucket, Max gunning the engine as they followed Agent White's car toward the canyon. Ben's heart raced with a mixture of fear and excitement. The hunt was escalating, the prey turning predator. Grandpa, I should transform now, Ben argued as they sped through the town. By the time we get there, it might be too late. Not yet, Max insisted. We don't know what we're facing. Save your strength until we have eyes on the situation. It was a tense 5-minute drive to the canyon entrance, where chaos reigned. Several government vehicles were in flames, and agents were taking cover behind rocks, exchanging fire with what appeared to be the insectoid lepidopterans, at least a dozen of them, armed with energy weapons and protected by personal shields. Agent White was already organizing her remaining forces, barking orders into a comm device as she took cover behind her car. This is bad, Gwen whispered, peering through the rust bucket's window. There are so many of them. Ben's hand hovered over the Nemetrix. Not for long, he promised, cycling through the available transformations. Ben, wait, Max cautioned. We need a plan. Those shields they're using seem to be deflecting conventional weapons. But Ben's predatory instincts were in full control now, the excitement of the hunt overwhelming his caution. No time for plans, Grandpa. People are dying out there. Before Max could stop him, Ben slammed his hand down on the Nemetrix dial. The red energy washed over him, transforming him into a massive, rhinoceros-like creature with a red armored hide and powerful jaws, the same form he'd first taken when finding the Nemetrix. Crabdozer. Max identified as Ben crashed out of the rust bucket, the vehicle rocking with the force of his exit. Ben charged toward the nearest cluster of lepidopterans, his massive bulk and momentum making him an unstoppable force. The aliens turned their weapons on him, energy blasts pinging harmlessly off his armored hide. The first alien didn't even have time to react before Ben slammed into it, his horn piercing its shield and impaling it against the canyon wall. The other lepidopterans chittered in alarm, adjusting their weapons to a higher setting. The intensified blast stung, but the Crabdozer form was built to withstand extreme heat and energy, a natural predator to energy-based lifeforms. Ben roared, swinging his massive head and sending 2 more aliens flying. From behind cover, the government agents watched in shock as the enormous red beast tore through the alien ranks. Agent White turned to Max, who had joined her behind the car. Is that, she began. My grandson, Max confirmed grimly. It's complicated. You don't say, she replied dryly, watching as Ben smashed another alien into the ground. The tide of battle was turning, the lepidopterans falling back in the face of the unexpected predator. But then, a new sound filled the air, a high-pitched whine that made everyone, including Ben, flinch in pain. From around the bend in the canyon, a larger vehicle appeared, hovering above the ground, its design clearly alien. It was at least 3 times the size of the government SUVs, with multiple weapon systems trained on the battlefield. Fall back. Agent White ordered her team. Heavy assault craft incoming. Ben turned toward the new threat, pawing the ground aggressively. The predatory instincts of the Crabdozer urged him to charge, to assert dominance over this new challenger. But as he tensed for the attack, a familiar figure darted out from behind a boulder, placing himself between Ben and the alien craft. Hold up, Tennyson. Kevin called, his hands raised. I've got this one. To everyone's astonishment, Kevin ran straight toward the hovering craft. Energy weapons fired at him, but Kevin merely grinned, holding out his hands and somehow absorbing the energy blasts. His body glowed with the stored power, veins visible beneath his skin. With a yell, Kevin leapt, slamming his energized hands against the craft's hull. There was a spectacular discharge of power, and the craft's systems visibly failed, its lights flickering out as it crashed to the ground. Show off, Ben growled, though in his crabdozer form it came out as more of a rumbling snort. The remaining Lepidopterans, seeing their support craft disabled, began to retreat, some activating personal teleportation devices similar to what Ben had seen in the cave. In moments, the battlefield was clear of living aliens, though their dead and wounded remained. The Nemetrix symbol on Ben's chest began to flash, and he reverted to human form, stumbling slightly as the transformation energy dissipated. The rush of battle still sang in his veins, the predator part of him disappointed that some prey had escaped. Kevin approached, looking surprisingly pleased with himself. Not bad, team effort, right? Where did you disappear to? Gwen demanded, joining them with Grandpa Max and Agent White. Kevin shrugged. Figured these government types wouldn't appreciate my unique skills, so I did some recon on my own. Found their patrol patterns, followed one back to where this big boy was waiting. He patted the downed alien craft. Was gonna warn you, but then they attacked first. Agent White was staring at Ben, her professional composure momentarily cracked. Maxwell Tennyson, she said slowly, I think you have some explaining to do. Max sighed. Ben found an alien device called the Nemetrix. It allows him to transform into predator species, specifically, the natural hunters of various sentient aliens. Like those bug things? Kevin asked. What eats them in the wild? Technically, bug lizards prey on lepidopterans, Max replied. That's probably one of the forms in the Nemetrix, though Ben hasn't transformed into that one yet. Agent White held up a hand, clearly struggling to process this information. So your grandson can turn into alien monsters, and this other boy can, what, absorb energy? And you didn't think this was worth mentioning earlier? Would you have believed me? Max countered. She conceded the point with a slight nod, then turned her attention to the downed alien craft. We need to secure this technology before reinforcements arrive. And we need a new plan, because they definitely know we're onto them now. Ben approached the craft, examining it with interest. The predator in him wanted to claim it as a trophy, proof of his successful hunt. Can we use this to find their main base? One of Agent White's tech specialists was already scanning the craft. Its navigation system is still partially intact, she reported. I'm picking up coordinates, looks like their main facility is exactly where our energy reading suggested, deep in the canyon wilderness. Then that's where we're going, Ben declared, the predator's certainty in his voice. Agent White raised an eyebrow at his tone but didn't challenge it. My remaining team will need time to regroup and bring in reinforcements. We'll mount a full assault in no time, Ben interrupted. If we wait, they'll either relocate or accelerate whatever Phase 1 is leading to. We need to hit them now, while they're off balance. That's suicide, Agent White argued. We just lost half my team to a patrol. Their main base will be heavily defended. Not against the right predator, Ben said confidently, tapping the Nemetrix. Kevin grinned. I'm with Tennyson on this one. Strike while they're scattered. For once, I agree with them, Gwen added. If these aliens are experimenting on people to create hybrid soldiers, every hour we wait means more victims. Agent White looked to Max, clearly expecting him to be the voice of reason. But Max's expression was resolute. They're right, he said. A small team might succeed where a frontal assault would fail. Stealth and precision over brute force. A hunting party, Ben murmured, the term feeling right. Agent White considered for a long moment, then nodded sharply. Fine. But I'm coming with you. And we do this smart, recon first, then a targeted strike at their vulnerable points. Deal, Ben agreed, already turning the dial on the Nemetrix, examining the available transformations for the perfect hunter. The plan was simple in theory: use the coordinates from the downed craft to locate the main Lepidopteran base, conduct reconnaissance to identify weaknesses, then strike fast and hard before they could organize a defense. In practice, it meant a grueling trek through the rugged canyon terrain, staying off the main paths to avoid detection. Their small strike team consisted of Ben, Gwen, Max, Kevin, and Agent White. The latter had reluctantly left her remaining forces to secure the area around the downed craft, focusing on recovery and containment while the strike team pushed ahead. According to the NAV data, we're less than a mile from their facility, Agent White reported, checking a handheld scanner as they paused on a ridge overlooking a deep ravine. It should be just beyond that next rise. Ben was uncharacteristically quiet, his senses hyperalert as they approached their prey. The Nemetrix's influence had heightened his natural abilities even in human form. He could smell the faint metallic scent of alien technology on the breeze, hear the distant hum of power systems. "I can sense it," he said softly. "Something big, just ahead." Kevin gave him a strange look. "You're getting weirder by the hour, Tennyson. Next you'll be sniffing the ground and marking territory." Ben bristled at the mockery, a growl rising in his throat. "At least I'm not a thief who runs at the first sign of trouble." "No, you're just turning into an animal," Kevin shot back. "Boys," Agent White interrupted sharply. "Focus on the mission." Grandpa Max placed a restraining hand on Ben's shoulder. "Kevin's right about one thing, Ben. The Nemetrix influence is getting stronger. You need to stay in control." Ben took a deep breath, forcing down the territorial aggression. "I'm fine," he insisted, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. The line between Ben Tennyson and the predator within was blurring by the hour. They continued their approach more cautiously now, using the rocky terrain for cover. As they crested the final ridge, they got their first look at the Lepidopteran base, and it was far more extensive than any of them had anticipated. Nestled in a natural bowl formation was what appeared to be a small city of alien structures, dominated by a central pyramid-like building that pulsed with green energy. Smaller structures surrounded it, connected by elevated walkways. The entire complex was shielded by a faint energy dome, visible only where dust particles hit its surface. "That's not an outpost," Agent White murmured. "That's a full-scale colonization effort." Max's expression was grim. "Just as I feared. They're not just creating hybrid soldiers, they're establishing a foothold on Earth." Ben's enhanced vision picked out details the others couldn't see: Lepidopteran guards patrolling the perimeter, transport vehicles coming and going through designated gates in the shield, and most disturbingly, what appeared to be holding pens where human figures were visible. "There are captives," he reported. "Dozens of them, in those structures to the east of the main building." "Agent." White raised her binoculars, adjusting the settings to maximum zoom. "Confirmed. I count at least 30 human captives, possibly more inside the structures." "So much for our small strike team idea," Gwen said, dismayed by the scale of the alien operation. "We can't take on a whole city." "We don't need to," Max replied, studying the layout. "We just need to disable their shield generator, free the captives, and sabotage their transformation technology. Disrupt the operation enough that they'll have to abandon it." "And how exactly do we do all that?" Kevin asked skeptically. Ben's eyes were fixed on the shield perimeter. "We need to get inside first. And I think I know how." He turned the dial on the Nemetrix, cycling through the alien silhouettes until he found the one he was looking for, a sleek, reptilian form with excellent stealth capabilities. "This one," he said, stopping on the silhouette. "Grandpa, what predator hunts Lepidopterans in the wild?" Max leaned closer to see the selected transformation. "That looks like a bug lizard. They're stealth predators, evolved specifically to hunt Lepidopterans on their home planet." "Good choice, Ben." Ben nodded, his hand hovering over the dial. "I'll infiltrate first, find the shield generator. Once I take it down, the rest of you can move in." "Too risky," Agent White objected. "We need to stay together." "A group can't sneak in," Ben countered. "But a predator evolved to hunt these aliens? They won't know what hit them." Before anyone could argue further, Ben slammed his hand down on the Nemetrix dial. The red energy engulfed him, reshaping his body into something low-slung and reptilian, with red and black scales, a whip-like tail, and a head full of needle-sharp teeth. Most unusually, this form could produce a thick, yellow fog from glands on its back, a natural adaptation to confuse the compound eyes of its lepidopteran prey. Ben tested his new form, flexing powerful limbs and flicking his tail. The buglezard's instincts flooded his mind: hunt, stalk, kill, but by now, Ben had experience integrating these urges with his human consciousness. He didn't fight the predatory nature, he channeled it, directed it toward the goal. "Be careful, Ben," Grandpa Max cautioned. "This form is pure hunter. Don't lose yourself in the instincts." Ben couldn't respond verbally, but he nodded his reptilian head in acknowledgement. Then, without further delay, he slunk down the ridge toward the alien complex, his body naturally adapting to the terrain, becoming nearly invisible against the rocks and shadows. The bug lizard form moved with incredible stealth, its padded feet making no sound on the rocky ground. Ben approached the energy shield, studying it with predator eyes that could see spectrums invisible to humans. He could make out the energy flow patterns, identify weak points where the shield connected to ground-based emitters. A lepidopteran patrol passed nearby, and Ben froze, the predator instinct to ambush warring with his mission objective. He forced himself to remain hidden, watching as the aliens moved past, oblivious to the hunter in their midst. When they were gone, Ben continued his approach, locating a shield emitter partially concealed behind a rock formation. The buglezard's natural abilities included an understanding of its prey's technology, an evolutionary advantage that allowed it to breach lepidopteran defenses in the wild. Ben found himself instinctively knowing how to disable the emitter, using his claws to precisely sever key components. The shield flickered briefly at that section but remained intact overall, a successful breach without triggering alarms. Ben squeezed through the gap he'd created, now inside the perimeter of the alien complex. Moving from shadow to shadow, Ben made his way toward the central pyramid structure, instinctively recognizing it as the heart of the operation. The bug lizard form was perfectly adapted for this environment, its heat signature naturally camouflaged against the lepidopteran detection systems. As he neared the main building, he passed one of the holding pens where human captives were kept. The sight of his fellow humans, some partially transformed like Maria, others still fully human but clearly terrified, stirred something beyond the predator instincts. A protective rage welled up, momentarily overriding the stealthy hunter mindset. One of the captives spotted him, eyes widening in fear at the sight of the alien predator. Ben quickly activated his fog glands, releasing a cloud of yellow mist that obscured him from view. He couldn't free the prisoners yet, not without alerting the entire complex. First, he needed to disable the main shield generator. The central pyramid loomed above him, its green energy pulsing in patterns that the bug lizard part of him recognized as power cycles. Ben scaled the side of the structure, his claws finding purchase in seams invisible to human eyes. Near the top, he located what his instincts told him was an access point, a maintenance hatch designed for the insectoid lepidopterans. With precise movements, Ben used his claws to manipulate the alien technology, bypassing security systems with an intuition that came from the buglezard's evolutionary knowledge of its prey. The hatch opened silently, revealing a narrow passage into the heart of the structure. Inside, the air was thick with pheromones that the bug lizard could interpret as communication, status updates, security alerts, command hierarchies. Ben followed the scent trail that indicated power control, moving deeper into the complex while avoiding lepidopteran workers. Eventually, he reached what could only be the central control room, a vast chamber dominated by crystalline structures similar to what he'd seen in the Canyon lab, but on a much larger scale. In the center stood what the bug lizard recognized as the shield generator and power distribution node. Lepidopteran technicians moved about the room, monitoring systems and adjusting controls. Ben counted 6 aliens total, too many to take on silently. He needed a distraction. Using the fog glands on his back, Ben created a thick cloud that he directed toward the far side of the chamber. The yellow mist, naturally irritating to lepidopteran senses, caused immediate alarm. The aliens chittered in distress, moving toward the disturbance to investigate. With the technicians distracted, Ben darted to the central control node. His claws moved with precision, targeting specific components that the bug lizard instinctively knew would disable the shield without triggering catastrophic overload. An alarm suddenly blared, whether from his actions or something else, Ben couldn't tell. The Lepidopteran technicians turned, spotting the predator at their control systems. They chittered in terror, recognizing a natural enemy from their evolutionary past. Ben didn't hesitate. The predator instincts took over, and he charged the nearest alien, his jaws closing around its thorax with crushing force. The other technicians scrambled for weapons or emergency controls, but the bug lizard was too fast, too perfectly adapted to hunting them. In a blur of motion, Ben incapacitated the technicians, using the buglizard's natural weapons with lethal efficiency. A part of his human consciousness was disturbed by how easy it was, how natural it felt to hunt these aliens. But another part, the growing predator within, felt only satisfaction. With the room secured, Ben returned to the shield controls. A few more precise adjustments, and the energy readings began to fluctuate. Throughout the complex, the shield would be failing, section by section. Ben's work was interrupted by the sound of heavy footsteps approaching, reinforcements responding to the alarm. He needed to complete the sabotage before they arrived. With one final, decisive strike, Ben severed the main power coupling to the shield generator. The entire system sparked and died, plunging the control room into momentary darkness before emergency lighting activated. The mission was half complete, the shield was down, allowing his team to infiltrate. Now he needed to free the captives and rendezvous with the others. Ben slipped out of the control room just as the reinforcements arrived, using the buglizard's fog to cover his escape. He navigated through the structure, heading back toward the holding pens he'd passed earlier. Outside, chaos was spreading through the complex as sections of the shield visibly failed. Ben could hear alarm signals and see Lepidopterans rushing to defensive positions. In the confusion, he made his way to the prisoner enclosures. The human captives backed away in fear as the red-scaled predator approached their energy barriers. Ben realized they saw him as just another alien threat. He needed to communicate somehow, to show he was here to help. The bug lizard form wasn't built for communication, but Ben was resourceful. Using his claws, he scratched a simple message in the dirt: "Friend. Here to help." Some of the captives looked skeptical, but others understood, pointing to the control panel that operated the energy barriers. Ben nodded, moving to the panel and using his predator instincts to identify the shutdown mechanism. The barriers disappeared, and the captives hesitantly emerged from their enclosures. Ben scratched another message: "Follow. Stay close." As he prepared to lead the freed humans toward the perimeter, an explosion rocked the far side of the complex. Ben recognized the energy signature: Kevin, absorbing and redirecting power. The rest of the team had made it inside and was creating a diversion. Ben herded the captives away from the fighting, using his fog to provide cover as they moved. Some of the prisoners were partially transformed, their movements awkward with new, alien limbs or features. Others helped the weakest, forming a ragged but determined group. They were nearing the section of shield Ben had disabled earlier when a larger explosion shook the entire complex. The central pyramid, where Ben had sabotaged the shield generator, was now engulfed in green flames. "Ben!" Gwen's voice called from nearby. She emerged from the smoke, alongside Grandpa Max and Agent White, who were providing covering fire against pursuing Lepidopterans. Max spotted the group of freed captives and directed them toward a breach in the perimeter. "This way. Quickly." Agent White was coordinating with her team via communicator. "Extraction point Alpha in 3 minutes. Get those civilians moving." Ben remained in bug lizard form, using his fog and natural weapons to hold off Lepidopteran forces trying to recapture the escaping humans. The predator instincts were fully engaged now, his human consciousness taking a back seat to the pure hunter mentality. One particularly large Lepidopteran charged through the fog, wielding what appeared to be a sonic weapon, specifically designed to counter bug lizard hunting techniques. The blast hit Ben directly, scrambling his senses and causing intense pain. Ben staggered, momentarily disoriented. The Lepidopteran advanced for a killing blow, but a surge of absorbed energy struck it from the side, sending it flying. "Gotcha covered, Tennyson," Kevin called, his body glowing with stolen power. "Nice lizard thing, by the way. Very scary." Ben growled appreciatively, shaking off the sonic attack's effects. Together, he and Kevin provided rear guard as the captives and the rest of their team retreated from the failing alien complex. Explosions continued to rock the facility, some from their sabotage, others from what appeared to be self-destruct protocols the Lepidopterans had activated. The entire operation was collapsing, exactly as they'd hoped. As they reached the extraction point, a defensible ridge where Agent White's reinforcements waited with transport, Ben felt the Nemetrix symbol on his chest beginning to flash. The transformation was timing out after extended use. The red light washed over him, returning him to human form just as they reached safety. Ben collapsed to his knees, exhausted both physically and mentally. The Buglizard's predatory instincts had been the strongest yet, the most consuming. For extended periods during the mission, he had thought and acted purely as the predator, his human consciousness merely an observer. "Ben!" Grandpa Max rushed to his side. "Are you all right?" "I think so," Ben managed, though his voice sounded strange to his own ears, rougher, with a subtle growling undertone. "Did we get everyone out?" "All the captives are accounted for," Agent White confirmed, approaching with a tablet displaying status reports. "And the alien facility is destroying itself. Mission accomplished." Ben nodded, trying to shake off the lingering bug lizard instincts. The hunting mindset was reluctant to release its hold, leaving him hyper-aware of movements, sense, potential threats. "You were in that form a long time," Max noted with concern. "Almost an hour." "It felt natural," Ben admitted. "Like I was born to hunt them." Kevin, who had been helping load injured captives into transport vehicles, rejoined them. "That was some serious predator action, Tennyson. You were scary efficient in there." "The bug lizard is specifically evolved to hunt Lepidopterans," Max explained. "Its instincts are perfectly attuned to their weaknesses, their technology, their behavior patterns." "It wasn't just instinct," Ben said slowly, trying to articulate what he'd experienced. "It was knowledge. Like the bug lizard carried ancestral memories of hunting these aliens for thousands of generations." "Genetic memory," a new voice commented. "Fascinating adaptation." They all turned to see Kyber emerging from the shadows, as if he'd been there all along, observing the entire operation. Agent White immediately drew her weapon, but Max raised a hand to stop her. "Kyber," Ben acknowledged, somehow unsurprised by the hunter's appearance. "You were watching." "Indeed," Kyber replied, his yellow eyes gleaming with interest. "Your performance was impressive. The way you integrated with the bug lizard form, how you channeled its hunting instincts toward your objectives. Few sentient beings could maintain such control while embracing the predator mindset." "What do you want?" Max demanded, still wary of the alien hunter. "To offer my expertise," Kyber said simply. "The boy is changing, becoming something new, neither human nor predator, but a synthesis of both. He requires guidance to master this evolution." "And you're volunteering out of the goodness of your heart?" Gwen asked skeptically. Kyber's expression might have been a smile, though on his skull-like face it was hard to tell. "I have my reasons. Chief among them, curiosity. I've hunted across 1,000 worlds, tracked the most dangerous prey in the galaxy. But I've never encountered anything quite like what young Tennyson is becoming." Ben found himself drawn to Kyber's words. The hunter spoke to something in him, something that had been growing stronger since he found the Nemetrix. A kinship of predators. "The Nemetrix was never meant for sentient use," Kyber continued. "Its influence should have overwhelmed your mind, reduced you to a feral state. Yet you resist, adapt, integrate. It's unprecedented. And concerning, Max added. Each transformation leaves him more affected, more predatory, even in human form. Kyber nodded. The integration is accelerating. Soon, the line between Ben Tennyson and the predator aspects of the Nemetrix will blur beyond distinction. Is that a bad thing? Ben asked, voicing the question that had been haunting him. These changes, they've helped me save lives, defeat threats. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to become. Ben, Gwen protested, you can't mean that. The Nemetrix is changing who you are. Evolution often appears frightening to those who witness it, Kyber observed. But it is neither good nor evil, merely adaptation to new circumstances. Agent White, who had been listening silently, stepped forward. I hate to interrupt this philosophical discussion, but we have wounded civilians who need medical attention, and a massive alien complex self-destructing less than a mile away. Perhaps we could continue this elsewhere. Max nodded. She's right. We need to get these people to safety, then figure out our next steps. As they began to move toward the transports, Kyber placed a hand on Ben's shoulder, stopping him momentarily. Consider my offer, young hunter, he said quietly. The path you walk is treacherous. Without guidance, you may lose yourself entirely to the predator within. I can teach you to walk the balance, to be both hunter and sentient, predator and human. Ben hesitated, then nodded. I'll think about it. As Kyber melted back into the shadows, Ben joined the others at the transports. But his mind remained on the hunter's words, and the growing certainty that his transformation, his evolution, was only beginning. The aftermath of the Lepidopteran incident kept them busy for days. Agent White's organization established a medical facility for the partially transformed captives, bringing in specialists who worked alongside Grandpa Max to develop treatments for their condition. For most victims, the transformations were reversible if caught early enough. Maria Chavez was among the lucky ones, her altered DNA gradually returning to human baseline with proper treatment. Others weren't so fortunate, their transformations had progressed too far, leaving them permanently changed to varying degrees. Ben spent most of this time in self-imposed isolation, struggling with the aftermath of his extended bug-lizard transformation. The predatory instincts had left a deeper mark than any previous form, influencing his behavior in ways that were becoming harder to hide. He found himself preferring raw meat, tracking movements with predator focus, even sleeping in a curled, animal-like position. His senses continued to sharpen, and his patience for normal human interaction waned. On the third evening, as the desert sun sank below the horizon, Ben sat alone on a ridge overlooking the remains of the Lepidopteran complex, now just a smoldering crater being methodically excavated by Agent White's team. The sound of footsteps approached, familiar ones that his enhanced hearing recognized immediately. I'm not in the mood for a lecture, Grandpa, he said without turning around. Max settled beside him on the rocky outcrop. Good, because I didn't come to give one. They sat in silence for a while, watching the distant figures moving around the excavation site, tiny under the vast desert sky. You did good work, Max finally said. Those people are alive because of you, Ben. Because of the choices you made and the risks you took. Ben glanced at his grandfather, surprised by the praise. Even though I used the Nemetrix. Even though I gave in to the predator instincts. You didn't give in to them, Max corrected. You channeled them, directed them toward a worthy goal. There's a difference. Ben looked down at the Nemetrix on his wrist, its red hourglass symbol pulsing softly in the gathering darkness. I'm changing, Grandpa. Every day, every transformation. I'm becoming something different. I know, Max acknowledged, his voice heavy with concern but free of judgment. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What can I do? Ben countered. We've tried everything to remove the Nemetrix, and nothing works. It's bonded to me now, part of me. Max nodded. Then perhaps the answer isn't fighting the change, but guiding it. Ensuring that whatever you become still carries the core of who Ben Tennyson is, your courage, your compassion, your determination to help others. Ben considered this, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Kyber offered to teach me. To help me balance the human and predator aspects. Max's expression tightened slightly. Kyber is a dangerous individual with his own agenda. But he does understand predators better than anyone else we know, Max admitted reluctantly. And his knowledge of the Nemetrix and its effects might be valuable. Ben was surprised by his grandfather's qualified approval. You're saying I should accept his offer? I'm saying we should consider all available resources, Max clarified. Including Kyber's expertise, if it can help you maintain control. But never forget that his primary identity is hunter, Ben. To him, everything is ultimately prey. The sound of additional footsteps interrupted their conversation. Gwen approached, followed by Kevin, who had surprisingly stuck around after the battle. There you are, Gwen said, sitting on Ben's other side. Agent White's been looking for you. She wants to debrief before her team moves out tomorrow. Ben nodded absently, still lost in thought. Kevin remained standing, awkwardly shifting his weight. So, I guess this is where I take off. Places to go, people to see, you know how it is. You're leaving? Ben asked, surprised to find he actually cared about the answer. Kevin shrugged. That's what I do. Don't stay in one place too long. He hesitated, then added, unless there's a reason to stick around. There might be, Ben said slowly. This thing with the aliens, the Nemetrix, it's bigger than just this incident. There will be other threats, other battles. And you need someone who can absorb energy and kick butt. Kevin guessed, a hint of a smile on his face. Something like that, Ben agreed. Plus, you're the only other person who knows what it's like to have powers that change you. That push you to become something else. Kevin's expression sobered. Yeah, I get that. He looked at his own hands, remembering the energy coursing through them, the rush of power that was both exhilarating and terrifying. The energy absorption, it affects me too. Changes how I think, what I want. Then maybe we can help each other, Ben suggested. Figure this stuff out together. Kevin seemed genuinely surprised by the offer. After a moment's consideration, he nodded. I could stick around a bit longer. See how things play out. Gwen rolled her eyes, but there was a hint of a smile on her face. Great, now there's two of them to worry about. Max stood, brushing dust from his pants. It's getting late. We should head back to camp. As the others started down the ridge, Ben lingered, gazing once more at the distant excavation site. The predator in him recognized it as the scene of a successful hunt, territory claimed and enemies defeated. But the human in him saw it as lives saved, a threat neutralized. Perhaps both perspectives were valid. Perhaps that was the path forward, not fighting the predator aspects, but integrating them, channeling them toward protection rather than pure hunting. Coming, Ben. Gwen called from the base of the ridge. Yeah, he replied, rising to his feet with fluid grace that wasn't entirely human. I'm coming. As he rejoined his family and their new ally, Ben felt a strange sense of acceptance settling over him. The Nemetrix had changed him, was still changing him. But maybe, just maybe, that change would make him a better protector for Earth, a predator with purpose. In the shadows beyond the ridge, yellow eyes watched his departure. Kyber nodded once in approval, then vanished into the night. The young hunter was evolving nicely. Soon, he would be ready for the next phase of his training, and the greater threats that lurked among the stars. Chapter 3, Apex Predator, Focus, Tennyson. Your enemy won't give you time to think. Ben barely dodged the energy blast that scorched the rock behind him. He rolled behind cover, breathing hard as sweat dripped down his face. 3 weeks of Kyber's training had left him bruised, exhausted, and increasingly frustrated. I am focusing, he snapped back, the growl in his voice more pronounced than ever. Maybe if you stopped shooting at me for 5 seconds, another blast cut him off, forcing him to dive sideways. They were training in an abandoned quarry miles from any town, the perfect place for Kyber to push Ben's limits without witnesses. Your enemies won't give you 5 seconds, Kyber replied calmly, adjusting his weapon. A predator must be constantly alert, constantly ready. Transform. Ben glanced at the Nemetrix, which had fully recharged after his last transformation. The device had changed again, growing more seamlessly integrated with his arm, the red hourglass symbol pulsing with his heartbeat. Which one? He asked, cycling through the available forms. Don't ask me, Kyber chided. A true hunter knows instinctively which form best suits the situation. Assess, decide, act, all in an instant. Ben scanned the quarry, taking in the terrain, the positions of potential cover, the nature of Kyber's weapon. His senses, now permanently enhanced by the Nemetrix, picked up details that would have been invisible to him a month ago: air currents, heat signatures, subtle vibrations. One transformation stood out as perfect for this environment. Ben slammed his hand down on the dial without hesitation. The red energy engulfed him, transforming him into a massive, rhinoceros-like creature, Crabdozer, the natural predator of Pyronites. Its armored hide would easily withstand Kyber's energy weapon. Ben charged forward, using the Crabdozer's momentum and bulk as weapons. Kyber nimbly sidestepped, but Ben had anticipated this, pivoting with surprising agility for such a large creature and lashing out with his tail. The strike caught Kyber's leg, sending him tumbling. Ben pressed the advantage, closing in for what would have been a finishing blow in a real fight. But Kyber wasn't so easily defeated. The hunter rolled beneath Ben's massive form, attaching something to the Nemetrix symbol on Ben's chest as he passed. Pain shot through Ben as his transformation suddenly destabilized. The red energy crackled around him, forcing him back to human form prematurely. What the hell? Ben gasped, dropping to one knee. What did you do? Kyber rose, dusting himself off. Disruption device, he explained, retrieving the small disc that had fallen to the ground after completing its purpose. Your enemies may develop countermeasures to the Nemetrix. You must be prepared for all contingencies. Ben scowled, rising unsteadily to his feet. That's cheating. There is no cheating in survival, Kyber replied. Only victory or death. From the sidelines, Gwen and Kevin watched the training session with varying degrees of concern. Gwen's worry was evident in her furrowed brow, while Kevin maintained a casual posture that didn't quite hide his interest. I still don't trust this guy, Kevin muttered as they observed Kyber giving Ben more instructions. Alien hunter decides to train the kid with the ultimate hunting device. Too convenient. Grandpa Max vetted him, Gwen replied, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. And Ben's getting better at controlling the transformations. It's not the transformations I'm worried about, Kevin said. It's him. He nodded toward Ben, who was arguing with Kyber about the disruption device. He's different. More aggressive, more. I don't know, primal. Even when he's not transformed. Gwen couldn't deny the changes. Ben's posture had altered subtly, taking on a perpetual readiness that reminded her of a coiled spring. His movements were more fluid, more economical. Even his speech patterns had changed, shorter sentences, more direct statements. The playful, sometimes annoying cousin she'd grown up with was still there, but increasingly subsumed by something more predatory. The Nemetrix is changing him on a genetic level, she acknowledged. Grandpa Max says it's rewriting parts of his DNA with each transformation. Kevin raised an eyebrow. And you're just letting that happen? What choice do we have? Gwen countered. The Nemetrix won't come off, and Ben refuses to stop using it. At least with Kyber's training, he's learning to control the predatory instincts instead of being controlled by them. Their conversation was interrupted as Ben and Kyber approached. Ben's eyes had a faint reddish glow to them now, especially noticeable in dim light, another physical manifestation of the Nemetrix's influence. That's enough for today, Kyber announced. The boy has made progress. High praise coming from you, Ben remarked, his voice carrying that now familiar undertone of a growl. He grabbed a water bottle and drained it in seconds, his enhanced metabolism constantly demanding fuel. Don't get overconfident, Kyber warned. You still rely too heavily on the Nemetrix's power rather than truly integrating with its instincts. Says the guy who used a disruption device when I was winning, Ben shot back. A hint of amusement crossed Kyber's skull-like features. A true predator never stops learning, never becomes complacent. Remember that. The hunter turned to leave, as he always did after training sessions. He never stayed for idle conversation, never joined them for meals or planning. His interest seemed exclusively focused on Ben's development as a wielder of the Nemetrix. Same time tomorrow? Ben called after him. Kyber paused. No. Tomorrow you hunt on your own. The forest 20 miles north contains a creature I've released, a non-sentient alien from the null void. Track it, capture it, bring it to me. Alive. Ben's eyes widened. A real hunt. Every training exercise has been real, Kyber replied. But yes, this will test your tracking abilities in the field rather than in controlled conditions. With that, he activated a teleportation device on his wrist and vanished in a flash of light. Kevin whistled. Dramatic exit. Guy's got style, I'll give him that. A hunting assignment, Gwen said worriedly. Is that really a good idea? The predator instincts already have too much influence over you, Ben. Ben shrugged, rolling his shoulders to work out the tension from training. That's the point of all this, isn't it? Learning to use the instincts instead of fighting them. There's using them and then there's surrendering to them, Gwen pointed out. I'm worried about where Kyber is pushing you. I'm not surrendering to anything, Ben insisted, though the eagerness in his voice at the prospect of a real hunt belied his words. This is just practical application. Kevin snorted. Right. Nothing says maintaining humanity like hunting alien creatures through the forest. Ben shot him an irritated look, a low growl escaping his throat before he could stop it. These involuntary predator responses were happening more frequently lately. Let's head back, Gwen suggested, stepping between them to defuse the tension. Grandpa Max wanted us to check in after training. They piled into Kevin's car, an old muscle car he'd acquired and fixed up, though none of them asked too many questions about its origins. As they drove, Ben stared out the window, his mind already on tomorrow's hunt. The predator within was eager, anticipatory. But a small part of him, the part that was still fully Ben Tennyson, wondered if Gwen was right to be concerned. Grandpa Max was waiting for them at the campsite he'd established as their base of operations. After the Lepidopteran incident, they'd decided to stay mobile, moving regularly to avoid being tracked by whoever might be interested in the Nemetrix. Currently, they were set up in a remote area of national forest land, the rust bucket parked in a clearing surrounded by dense trees. Max looked up from the communication device he was tinkering with as they approached. How was training? Brutal, Ben replied, heading straight for the cooler. He pulled out a sandwich, devouring it in a few bites. His metabolism had accelerated dramatically in recent weeks, requiring almost constant caloric intake to fuel the Nemetrix-induced changes. Kyber's pushing him too hard, Gwen said, sitting across from her grandfather. And now he wants Ben to hunt some alien creature in the forest tomorrow. Max's expression grew concerned. A hunt? That's escalating the training faster than I'd like. It's just tracking practice, Ben insisted, already starting on a second sandwich. Besides, I need to test these instincts in a real situation. The Nemetrix was designed for hunting, fighting against that is like trying to use a hammer as a screwdriver. That's actually not a bad analogy, Kevin admitted, grabbing a soda from the cooler. Max sighed, setting aside his work. I understand the reasoning, Ben. But I'm concerned about the rate of your transformation. The physical changes are accelerating. Ben couldn't deny it. Besides his enhanced senses and reddish eyes, he'd grown noticeably stronger and faster in his human form. His canine teeth had lengthened slightly, giving him a more predatory smile. Even his fingernails were thicker, harder, more claw-like if he didn't keep them trimmed. "I'm still me, Grandpa," he said, though with less conviction than he might have mustered a few weeks ago. "Just, upgraded." "Perhaps," Max allowed. "But there's something else we need to discuss." He activated a holographic display from his plumber badge, showing what appeared to be satellite imagery of a facility in a mountainous region. "I've located Dr. Psychoboss." Ben immediately tensed, alert and focused. "The crab who created the Nemetrix." "Where?" "Remote research facility in the Rockies," Max replied. "Officially registered as a private astronomical observatory, but my plumber contacts confirm it's a front for alien tech development." "So what's the play?" Kevin asked, leaning forward with interest. "Raid the place, grab the crab." "Reconnaissance first," Max corrected. "We need to know what he's working on. After the Lepidopteran incident, he's gone completely dark, no communications, no sightings, nothing until this facility popped up on the radar." Ben's predator instincts hummed with anticipation. Psychoboss was the creator of the Nemetrix, a natural target for his growing hunting mindset. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow," Max replied, then frowned. "Which means you'll have to postpone Kyber's hunting assignment." "No way," Ben said immediately. "I can do both. The hunt in the morning, then we head to the Rockies in the afternoon." Gwen began, but he cut her off. "I need this, Gwen," he insisted, an edge to his voice that made everyone pause. "The predator instincts are building up. If I don't channel them properly, they'll find other outlets. Trust me, you don't want that." The admission silenced further objections. It was the first time Ben had openly acknowledged the struggle to contain the predatory urges that were becoming increasingly dominant in his personality. "All right," Max finally conceded. "But Kevin goes with you on the hunt, and you're back here by noon. No exceptions." Ben nodded, though the predator in him bristled at the restrictions. "Deal." As they prepared for dinner, none of them noticed the small drone hovering at the edge of the clearing, its optical sensors focused on their campsite. The drone recorded their entire conversation before silently retreating into the darkening forest, its mission complete. "This is so stupid," Kevin muttered as they trekked through the pre-dawn forest. "Hunting alien creatures at 6 in the morning when we could be sleeping." Ben ignored the complaint, his senses fully engaged with their surroundings. The forest was alive with information, scents, sounds, subtle movements that would have been invisible to him before the Nemetrix. He moved with unconscious grace through the underbrush, barely disturbing a leaf. "How do you even know where to look?" Kevin asked, clumsily pushing through a thicket Ben had navigated effortlessly. "I can smell it," Ben replied, his voice low and focused. "Something alien, different from the natural forest scents. That way." He pointed north, where the trees grew denser. Kevin shook his head in disbelief. "That's not normal, Tennyson. You know that, right? Humans can't track by scent." "I'm not exactly human anymore, am I?" Ben replied, the statement matter-of-fact rather than bitter or angry. The frank admission gave Kevin pause. "You're really okay with that? With changing into something else?" Ben stopped, considering the question seriously. "I don't know if okay is the right word. But fighting it is, exhausting. And pointless. The Nemetrix chose me for a reason. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to become." "That's Kyber talking," Kevin said skeptically. "Just because some alien hunter thinks you're his star pupil doesn't mean you have to buy into his philosophy." Ben resumed walking, following the alien scent that grew stronger with each step. "It's not just Kyber. It's experience. Every transformation feels right, natural. And the instincts, They're not foreign anymore. They're just, me. Kevin had no response to that. He'd experienced his own share of transformations and power-induced changes, but nothing as fundamental as what Ben was describing. They continued in silence for another mile, Ben leading them unerringly through the forest. The sun began to rise, filtering through the canopy in dappled patterns that Ben's enhanced vision perceived with crystal clarity. Suddenly, he froze, dropping into a crouch. Kevin immediately tensed, ready for danger. "We're close," Ben whispered, his voice barely audible. "It's just ahead, in that clearing." Kevin strained to see what Ben was tracking. The clearing appeared empty to his normal human eyes. "I don't see anything." "It's camouflaged," Ben explained. "But I can smell it, hear its breathing. Some kind of reptilian predator, I think." "So what's the plan? You going to transform?" Ben shook his head. "Not yet. Kyber wants me to test my tracking abilities in human form first." He pointed to a fallen log on the far side of the clearing. "It's there, hiding underneath. We need to flush it out, then I'll transform to capture it." "And how exactly do we flush out an invisible alien predator?" Kevin asked skeptically. Ben reached into his pocket, pulling out a small device Kyber had given him, a sonic emitter tuned to frequencies that would irritate most predator species. With this, before Kevin could object, Ben activated the device. A high-pitched whine, barely audible to human ears but painful to enhanced senses, filled the clearing. The effect was immediate. A shimmer of movement erupted from beneath the log as a creature the size of a large tiger suddenly became visible. It resembled a cross between a lizard and a wolf, with iridescent scales, 6 legs, and a mouth full of needle-like teeth. "Holy!" Kevin stumbled back as the creature roared, its attention fixed on Ben as the source of the painful sound. Ben stood his ground, staring down the alien predator with an intensity that matched its own. This was the moment of truth. Would he control the hunt, or would the hunt control him? The creature charged, covering the distance between them with frightening speed. At the last possible second, Ben deactivated the sonic device and rolled aside, narrowly avoiding razor-sharp claws. "Now might be a good time to transform," Kevin shouted, absorbing the material from a nearby rock to armor himself. Ben rolled to his feet, already activating the Nemetrix. He cycled through transformations with practiced speed, selecting a form perfect for countering the reptilian predator, a massive, bear-like creature with thick fur and enormous strength. The red energy washed over him, transforming him into what Kyber had identified as a pterorancula, natural predator of the conductoid species. The form was powerful, agile, and possessed natural webbing abilities that would allow him to capture rather than kill. The alien creature hesitated, confronted by a new and unfamiliar predator. Ben used that moment of uncertainty to attack, launching himself across the clearing with explosive power. He collided with the reptilian alien, the impact sending them both tumbling. Claws and teeth flashed as they grappled, predator versus predator in a contest of strength and skill. Ben's pterorancula form was stronger, but the reptilian creature was faster, slipping from his grasp repeatedly. Kevin stood back, watching in amazement as Ben fought with a combination of raw animal instinct and tactical precision. This was no random brawl. Every move Ben made was calculated, efficient, designed to wear down his opponent while conserving his own energy. The reptilian alien made a desperate lunge, attempting to flee back into the forest. Ben anticipated the move, shooting a strand of energy webbing from specialized glands in his pterorancula form. The webbing wrapped around the creature's legs, bringing it crashing to the ground. More webbing followed, quickly cocooning the struggling alien until only its head remained free. The creature thrashed, hissed, and finally subsided into defeated growls as it recognized its capture was complete. The Nemetrix symbol on Ben's chest flashed, returning him to human form. He approached the bound creature cautiously, his expression one of satisfied triumph rather than the gleeful excitement that might have characterized the old Ben. That, Kevin said, releasing his rock armor, was actually pretty impressive. Ben nodded, crouching to examine his captive. The reptilian alien snarled weakly, but the energy webbing held firm. Kyber called it a Pangoran. Native to the same sector as the null void. Non-sentient but highly intelligent hunter. How do you know all that? Kevin asked, keeping a safe distance from the creature's snapping jaws. Ben looked up, surprise crossing his features. I don't know. The information was just, there. Like the Nemetrix downloaded it directly into my brain. That's not concerning at all, Kevin muttered. It makes sense, Ben said, rising to his feet. The Nemetrix contains predator DNA. It would naturally include knowledge of the species I transform into, and by extension, their natural environments and prey. Kevin studied him with narrowed eyes. You're talking like a scientist now. That's new. Ben shrugged. The Nemetrix enhances different aspects of my intelligence depending on what's needed. Hunting requires knowledge as well as instinct. Right. Well, you caught your alien tiger lizard thing. What now? We take it to Kyber, Ben replied, producing a small device from his pocket, another tool the hunter had provided. He activated it, creating a localized containment field around the bound Pangoran. The field lifted the creature a few inches off the ground, allowing them to transport it without direct contact. Convenient, Kevin commented. Your alien hunter buddy has some pretty advanced tech for someone who acts like he's all about primal skills. A true predator uses every advantage, Ben replied, quoting Kyber. He gestured for Kevin to follow as he began navigating back through the forest, the floating Pangoran trailing behind them like an exotic balloon. Kevin rolled his eyes but fell into step beside Ben. You know you're starting to sound exactly like him, right? Next thing you'll be wearing a skull mask and mounting trophies on your wall. Ben didn't reply, but the comment struck closer to home than Kevin realized. There was a part of him, a growing part, that found Kyber's lifestyle and philosophy increasingly appealing. The simplicity of the hunt, the clarity of purpose, the absence of moral ambiguity that complicated human interactions. They reached the designated meeting point, a small clearing where Kyber's ship was now visible, its cloaking technology deactivated. The hunter himself stood at the base of the ramp, arms crossed as he observed their approach. You succeeded, he noted, examining the captured Pangoran with a critical eye. And faster than expected. The creature is unharmed. Just as you asked, Ben confirmed. Tracked it by scent, used the sonic emitter to flush it out, captured it with pterorancula webbing. Kyber nodded approvingly. Efficient. You're learning to integrate your human intelligence with predator instinct. Good. Kevin hung back, uncomfortable with the obvious mentor-student dynamic that had developed between Ben and the alien hunter. There was something almost parental in Kyber's approval, and Ben clearly basked in it. What will you do with it? Ben asked, gesturing to the captured alien. Return it to my collection, Kyber replied. The Pangoran is a rare specimen, valuable for study. You collect alien predators? Kevin interjected, unable to hide his distaste. Like a zoo. Kyber's yellow eyes flicked to Kevin briefly. For research and preservation, not entertainment. Many of these species are endangered in their native habitats. Whatever helps you sleep at night, Kevin muttered. Ben shot him a warning look before turning back to Kyber. I have to cut training short today. We're investigating Dr. Psychobo's new facility. Something flashed in Kyber's eyes, surprise, perhaps, or concern. Psychobos. You've located him. My grandfather tracked him to a research facility in the Rockies, Ben explained. We're doing recon this afternoon. Kyber seemed to consider this information carefully. Interesting timing. I've recently gathered intelligence suggesting Psychobos isn't working alone anymore. What do you mean? Ben asked, instantly alert. Rumors in certain circles speak of a partnership, Psychobos providing the scientific expertise, someone else providing direction and resources. Kyber's tone was casual, but his posture had tensed subtly. Perhaps you should delay your investigation until we know more. No way, Ben replied immediately. If Psychoboss is working with someone else, that's even more reason to check it out now. He created the Nemetrix, who knows what else he might be developing. Kyber appeared ready to argue but then nodded. Your hunt, your decision. But caution would be wise. Psychoboss is dangerous precisely because he is predictable in his arrogance. An unknown partner introduces variables. We'll be careful, Ben assured him, though the predator in him was already anticipating a new hunt, a new challenge. Kyber studied him for a moment longer, then gestured to the captured Pangoran. I'll take the specimen now. Your training session tomorrow will focus on underwater hunting. Be prepared. With that, he activated a recall beam from his ship, transporting the contained Pangoran aboard. Kyber followed with a nod of farewell, the ramp retracting behind him. As the ship shimmered and vanished under its cloaking technology, Kevin let out a long breath. That guy gives me the creeps. You really trust him? Ben watched the spot where the ship had been, his expression thoughtful. Trust isn't the right word. He has his own agenda, obviously. But our interests align for now. He wants to see what I become with the Nemetrix, and I need his knowledge to control it. And when your interests don't align anymore? Kevin pressed. Ben turned to him, and for a moment, Kevin caught a glimpse of something truly predatory in his friend's eyes, calculating, cold, utterly confident. Then we'll see who the better hunter is. The statement hung in the air between them, a promise or a threat, Kevin wasn't sure which. Then Ben's expression softened, returning to something more recognizably human. Come on, he said, checking the time. We need to get back to camp. Grandpa Max will be waiting. As they headed back through the forest, Kevin couldn't shake the feeling that the balance within Ben was shifting, human and predator less like separate entities now, more like aspects of a new whole. The question was, which aspect would ultimately dominate? The rust bucket rumbled up the winding mountain road, its aged engine protesting the steep grade. Inside, the mood was focused, tense with anticipation. Max drove, his experienced hands guiding the RV along the treacherous route. Gwen sat beside him, studying satellite imagery of their destination on her laptop. In the back, Ben and Kevin checked their equipment, though in Ben's case, his primary weapon was already attached to his wrist, pulsing with red energy as if eager for action. Approaching the final turn, Max announced. After this, we'll be in visual range of the facility. We'll park in the observation point half a mile down from the summit and proceed on foot. Ben nodded, already feeling the familiar surge of predatory focus. That preceded a hunt. His senses were hyperalert, picking up details through the rust bucket's windows that the others couldn't possibly detect, the shift in air pressure as they climbed, the subtle changes in wildlife sounds that indicated human presence ahead. Remember, Max continued, this is reconnaissance only. We observe, gather information, and leave. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. Got it, Grandpa, Ben replied automatically, though the predator within him chafed at the restrictions. Once he picked up Psychobo's scent, the urge to hunt would be difficult to resist. They reached the observation point, a small cleared area meant for tourists to admire the view. Max parked the rust bucket facing downhill, ready for a quick exit if needed. The team gathered outside, checking communications devices and reviewing the approach plan one final time. Gwen and I will circle around to the east side, Max instructed. Ben, you and Kevin approach from the west. Stay in radio contact, and remember, observe only. Ben adjusted the communicator in his ear, nodding. What if we spot Psychoboss? Document and report, Max said firmly. Do not engage. The four split up, taking different paths into the dense forest that surrounded the facility. Ben and Kevin moved silently, or at least, Ben did. Kevin's progress was marked by occasional snapping twigs and muttered curses. Dude, how are you so quiet? Kevin whispered after Ben effortlessly navigated a stretch of terrain that had left him stumbling. It's like you're floating or something. Weight distribution, Ben replied absently, his attention focused ahead. Step where the ground is most solid, roll your foot from heel to toe, keep your center of gravity low. Yeah, because that's totally normal knowledge for a 10-year-old kid, Kevin muttered. Ben didn't respond, suddenly freezing in place. His nostrils flared, catching a scent that hadn't been there moments before, ozone, metal, and something else, something wrong. What is it? Kevin asked, tensing at Ben's sudden stillness. We're not alone, Ben whispered. Something's watching us. Kevin scanned the forest but saw nothing unusual. Your predator sense is tingling. It's not funny, Ben hissed. There's something. A red beam of energy cut through the forest, striking the ground inches from Ben's feet. Both boys dove for cover as more beams followed, slicing through trees and underbrush with devastating precision. So much for stealth. Kevin shouted, absorbing the material from a nearby boulder to armor himself. What is that thing? Ben peered around the tree he was using for cover, his enhanced vision cutting through the smoke and debris. What he saw made his blood run cold. A robotic figure moved through the forest with mechanical grace, its body a jagged collection of red and black components that seemed to be in constant flux. Its right arm had transformed into an energy cannon, the source of the beams. Most disturbing was its face, or lack thereof. Where a head should have been was simply a blank faceplate with a single red eye-like sensor. Drone? Kevin guessed, lobbing a rock at the approaching figure. The rock struck the robot directly, but instead of bouncing off, it was absorbed, the mechanical body simply opening up and integrating the material into itself. Not a drone, Ben realized. Something worse. He activated his communicator. Grandpa, we've got company. Some kind of adaptive robot that absorbs matter. Max's voice crackled through. Fall back. That sounds like. The rest of his warning was lost as another energy beam destroyed the tree Ben was hiding behind. He rolled away, the Nemetrix already activated, cycling through forms. No time for retreat, he called to Kevin. Cover me. Kevin charged forward, his rock-armored fists smashing into the robot. The impact staggered it momentarily, but its body simply reconfigured, adapting to absorb the kinetic energy of Kevin's attacks. Whatever you're gonna do it fast. Kevin shouted as his punches became increasingly ineffective. This thing is learning. Ben selected a transformation, a massive, beetle-like creature with enormous pincers and a red armored carapace. The red energy washed over him, transforming him into what Kyber had called a tyrannopede, one of the most powerful predator forms in the Nemetrix. The transformation complete, Ben roared, a sound that echoed through the forest and momentarily paused all combat. Even the robot seemed to hesitate, its single red eye focusing on the enormous predator that now faced it. That's new, Kevin commented, backing away to give Ben room. And terrifying. The tyrannopede was easily 20 feet long, its segmented body supported by multiple legs that ended in razor-sharp points. Its head was dominated by massive crushing pincers and multiple smaller appendages. Ben charged, his enormous bulk smashing through the forest with unstoppable momentum. The robot fired its energy weapon, but the beams deflected off the tyrannopede's armored hide without effect. The collision was spectacular. Ben's pincers closed around the robot's midsection, the pressure enough to crush ordinary steel. But the machine's body simply flowed around the attack, reconstituting itself in a new configuration that slipped from Ben's grasp. The robot backed away, its body shifting again. The energy cannon transformed into something new, a sonic emitter that released a high-pitched wail directly targeted at the tyrannopede's sensitive auditory systems. Ben roared in pain, the sound disorienting him enough that his next charge went wide, crashing through trees instead of hitting his target. The robot pressed its advantage, the sonic attack increasing in intensity. Through the pain, Ben forced himself to think strategically. The tyrannopede form was powerful but too large and unwieldy for this fight. He needed something faster, more agile. The Nemetrix responded to his need, the transformation shifting mid-battle, something that had never happened before. The red energy reconfigured his body into a new form, smaller but blindingly fast. A bug lizard, the same form he'd used against the Lepidopterans. The sonic attack became less effective against the buglezard's different auditory system. Ben used the moment of adjustment to close the distance, his new form perfectly suited for quick strikes. He released a cloud of yellow fog from his back glands, obscuring the robot's visual sensors. Through the fog, Ben struck repeatedly, claws and teeth finding purchase against the machine's constantly shifting body. Each attack seemed to do minimal damage, the robot healing almost instantly by reconfiguring its components. "This isn't working," Kevin shouted from somewhere in the fog. "We need to fall back." Ben growled in frustration. The predator in him refused to retreat from prey, but his tactical mind recognized the truth in Kevin's words. This enemy adapted too quickly, learned from each attack. Suddenly, the fog cleared, blown away by a pulse of energy from the robot. Its body had transformed again, now bristling with various weapons and defensive systems clearly designed to counter the buglezard's abilities. Most disturbing was its appearance. The machine had begun to take on a more defined form, almost humanoid, but with jagged edges and an unsettling fluidity to its movements. The blank faceplate had developed features, crude approximations of eyes, a mouth, a nose. It spoke, the voice mechanical but with undeniable malice. "Interesting. The Nemetrix responds to your conscious control now. You've evolved further than anticipated, Ben Tennyson." Ben froze. The thing knew him by name. "What are you?" he growled, the bug lizard form limiting his speech to guttural sounds. The robot seemed to understand nonetheless. "I am malware," it replied. "And you have something that belongs to me." The machine, malware, gestured toward the Nemetrix symbol on Ben's chest. Before Ben could respond, a barrage of energy blasts struck malware from behind. Grandpa Max and Gwen had arrived, Max wielding a plumber-issue energy rifle while Gwen provided cover fire with smaller weapons. "Ben, Kevin, fall back," Max ordered, continuing to fire. "That's malware, a galvanic mechamorph gone rogue. Extremely dangerous." Malware turned toward the new threats, its body reconfiguring once more. "Maxwell Tennyson," it acknowledged. "Your interference is unwelcome but expected." Ben used the distraction to strike again, his bug lizard claws tearing into malware's back. The machine barely seemed to notice, simply flowing around the attack and reforming. "Your primitive predator forms cannot harm me," malware stated, its tone almost disappointed. "I am beyond physical damage." With frightening speed, it lashed out, a tendril of its body wrapping around Ben's Nemetrix symbol. Pain shot through him as malware attempted to interface directly with the device. "Yes," the machine hissed, its single eye glowing brighter. "The Nemetrix has evolved, just as I designed it to. Your DNA has been permanently altered, human child. You are becoming the perfect vessel. Get away from him." Kevin shouted, charging forward with his rock-armored body. Malware casually batted him aside with an extended limb, never breaking its connection to the Nemetrix. The energy absorber is an unexpected variable. Potentially useful. Ben struggled against the connection, feeling something invasive probing not just the Nemetrix but his own consciousness. Malware wasn't just scanning the device, it was attempting to access the predator instincts that had become interwoven with Ben's mind. In desperation, Ben triggered another transformation, hoping to disrupt the connection. The red energy flared, more intense than ever before, and his body began to shift, not to a known predator form, but to something new. The transformation tore him free from malware's grasp. When the energy dissipated, Ben stood in a form none of them had seen before, a hybrid creature that combined elements of multiple predator species. The head and upper body resembled a vulpomancer, while the lower body had the powerful legs of a bug lizard. Arms ended in the claws of a tyrannopede, and a whip-like tail lashed behind him. "Fascinating," malware observed, its body reconfiguring to a more defensive posture. The Nemetrix is responding to your desperation, creating composite forms. Just as I theorized. Ben roared, the sound unlike anything a single species would produce. The hybrid form was disorienting, multiple predator instincts competing for dominance in his mind, but the surge of power was undeniable. He launched himself at Malware with blinding speed, striking with a combination of attacks no single predator could execute. Claws tore into the machine's body, followed by a powerful kick from Bug Lizard legs, finished with a tail strike that sent Malware crashing through several trees. For the first time, the machine seemed genuinely damaged, its body struggling to reconfigure fast enough to counter the unpredictable hybrid attacks. Enough. Malware finally declared, its body pulsing with energy. This encounter has provided sufficient data. We will continue this another time, Ben Tennyson. Before anyone could stop it, Malware transformed into a stream of liquid metal that rapidly retreated through the forest, disappearing from view within seconds. Ben's hybrid form destabilized, the red energy crackling around him as the Nemetrix struggled to maintain the unprecedented transformation. With a flash, he reverted to human form, dropping to his knees in exhaustion. Ben! Gwen and Max rushed to his side, while Kevin picked himself up, shedding his rock armor. What was that thing? Ben gasped, his body trembling from the strain of the hybrid transformation. Max's expression was grim. Malware. A corrupted galvanic mechamorph, a techno-organic species capable of merging with and upgrading technology. But Malware is different. Incomplete, dangerous. It knew me, Ben said, struggling to his feet with Gwen's help. It said it designed the Nemetrix to alter my DNA. That I was becoming a perfect vessel. Max and Gwen exchanged worried glances. That can't be right, Gwen argued. Dr. Psychoboss created the Nemetrix. He said so himself. Unless they work together, Kevin suggested, rejoining the group. Or Malware was the real mastermind, using Psychoboss for his scientific knowledge. That tracks with what Kyber mentioned, Ben recalled. He said Psychoboss might have a partner now. Max helped Ben to a nearby log, examining him for injuries. The Nemetrix was supposed to be for non-sentient use only. If Malware designed it specifically to alter human DNA, then he meant for me to find it, Ben finished, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. This wasn't an accident. He wanted me to bond with the Nemetrix. But why? Gwen asked, the question hanging in the air between them. A perfect vessel, Ben repeated Malware's words. Perfect for what? Max's communicator beeped, interrupting their discussion. He checked the display, his expression darkening further. We've got movement at Psychobo's facility. Something's happening. Despite his exhaustion, Ben was immediately alert. Malware? No readings match his signature, Max replied. But energy levels are spiking throughout the complex. Whatever they're doing in there, it's big. Ben stood, the Nemetrix on his wrist pulsing in time with his accelerated heartbeat. Then we still have a mission to complete. Reconnaissance on Psychobo's facility. After what just happened? Gwen protested. You can barely stand. I'm fine, Ben insisted, and surprisingly, it was true. The fatigue was already fading, his body recovering with unnatural speed, another Nemetrix enhancement. And we need answers. If Malware and Psychoboss are working together, we need to know what they're planning. Max considered, then nodded reluctantly. We proceed with caution. At the first sign of trouble, we extract. Agreed? Ben nodded, though the predator within him was already anticipating the hunt to come. Malware had retreated, but Psychoboss might still be within reach. And now, with this new revelation about the Nemetrix's purpose, the hunt had taken on a personal dimension. Whatever game Malware was playing, Ben was determined to end it, not as prey, but as the apex predator. The approach to Psychobo's facility was more cautious this time, the team moving in a tight formation with Max taking point. The encounter with malware had put them all on high alert, weapons ready and senses straining for any sign of danger. Ben moved with predatory silence, his enhanced senses providing an early warning system that allowed them to avoid several automated security patrols. The facility itself came into view as they crested a ridge, a cluster of sleek, modern buildings. Nestled into the mountainside, dominated by a large central structure with a retractable dome. The observatory cover story checks out visually, Max noted as they surveyed the complex through binoculars. But those satellite dishes aren't for astronomy. They're communication arrays, likely for deep space transmission. And check out those power readings, Kevin added, examining a scanner he'd borrowed from Max, way more juice than they'd need for research. They're powering something big in there. Ben focused on the facility, extending his senses to their limits. Even at this distance, he could detect faint scents carried on the breeze, the distinct odor of Psychobo species, various chemicals, and something else, something familiar. Malware was here, he confirmed. Recently. His scent is all over the place. Gwen looked at him with a mixture of concern and resignation. Her cousin's increasingly non-human abilities had become their new normal, but that didn't make them any less unsettling. All right, we need a closer look, Max decided. There's a maintenance access point on the east side. Less security, according to the schematics. They made their way around the perimeter, staying low and using the natural terrain for cover. Ben led the way, his predator senses alerting them to potential dangers before they became threats. The maintenance entrance was exactly where the schematics indicated, a simple door set into the mountainside, partially concealed by landscaping. A single camera provided security coverage, its sweep pattern regular and predictable. I can hack the lock, Gwen offered, pulling out a small device she'd been practicing with. Ben shook his head. No need. He examined the camera's sweep pattern for a few seconds, then darted forward in the blind spot, moving with such speed that he was at the door before the camera began its return sweep. Up close, he could smell the electrical components of the lock mechanism. With precision born from countless hunting exercises with Kyber, Ben located the weak point in the system, a junction box poorly protected against physical tampering. His fingernails, now naturally harder and sharper than a normal human's, made short work of the cover. A quick adjustment to the wiring inside, and the door clicked open. Clear, he called softly to the others. Kevin raised an eyebrow as they joined him. Since when do you know how to bypass security systems? Predator adaptability, Ben replied, as if that explained everything. And in a way, it did. The Nemetrix wasn't just changing his body but his mind, enhancing whatever skills were needed for successful hunting. Inside, the facility was clinically sterile, white walls, polished floors, and bright lighting that made Ben wince slightly, his eyes more sensitive to artificial illumination now. Max consulted a small device. Power signature is strongest from the central building. That's our target. They moved through service corridors, avoiding the main hallways where staff might be present. Ben's hearing picked up conversations from rooms they passed, scientists discussing experiments, security personnel reporting status updates, maintenance workers complaining about equipment failures. Wait, he whispered suddenly, holding up a hand to stop the group. I hear Psycho Boss. He's arguing with someone. Ben closed his eyes, focusing his hearing on the distant conversation. The others waited silently, trusting his enhanced senses. Malware isn't here, he finally reported. But Psychoboss is talking to him via communication. Something about a extraction device being behind schedule. Can you tell what they're planning to extract? Max asked. Ben concentrated harder. The Nemetrix, and something about a predator essence. Psychoboss sounds afraid. Malware is threatening him. They want to remove the Nemetrix from you, Gwen realized. But if it's bonded to your DNA now, they'd have to extract part of me with it, Ben finished grimly. The predator essence Malware mentioned. Kevin frowned. Why would they? Create the Nemetrix, arrange for you to find it, let it bond with you, only to want to extract it later. That makes no sense. Unless, Max said slowly, the pieces falling into place, the bonding process was necessary to create something they couldn't synthesize artificially. The merging of human DNA with predator instincts. Ben felt a chill that had nothing to do with the facility's air conditioning. Malware called me a perfect vessel. What if I'm not the end goal? What if I'm just an incubator for whatever they're really trying to create? The theory hung in the air, disturbing in its implications and frighteningly plausible. We need to see this extraction device, Max decided. If they're planning to use it on Ben, we need to know how it works, and how to stop it. Ben nodded, turning back to the task at hand. The hunt had taken on new urgency now. This wasn't just about stopping Psychoboss and malware, it was about protecting himself from becoming their unwilling genetic donor. They continued through the facility, following the increasing power signatures toward the central building. Security became heavier as they approached, more cameras, motion sensors, and the occasional patrol of armed guards. We'll never make it through conventionally, Max observed as they peered around a corner at a particularly well-guarded checkpoint. Ben touched the Nemetrix, which pulsed eagerly in response. I could transform, clear a path. Too risky, Max countered. We don't want to alert Psychoboss that we're here. I've got an idea, Kevin said, examining the ceiling. Maintenance ducts. Classic infiltration route. Gwen followed his gaze. That could work. If they're large enough. They located an access panel in a quiet section of corridor. Kevin boosted Ben up first, his smaller size making him the logical choice to scout ahead. The ducts were cramped but navigable, and Ben's enhanced senses allowed him to move through the pitch-black tunnels with ease. All clear, he whispered down to the others. Follow the sound of my voice. One by one, they squeezed into the duct system, with Ben leading the way using his predator senses to navigate. The network of tunnels led them over secure areas they could never have accessed otherwise, providing glimpses into laboratories where alien technology was being studied and modified. Finally, they reached the central building. Ben paused at a junction, scenting the air. Psychoboss is close. Directly below us. They located an outlet that opened into a small storage room. Ben dropped down silently, followed by the others with varying degrees of stealth. The main laboratory should be through that door, Max whispered, indicating a heavy security door at the far end of the storage room. That's where the power signatures are concentrated. Ben approached the door, examining the security panel beside it. This was beyond simple tampering, it required biometric authentication, likely keyed to Psychoboss himself. I can't bypass this, he admitted reluctantly. Kevin stepped forward, placing his hand on the panel. Let me try something. His ability to absorb energy extended to information systems as well, though with less precision than pure energy forms. Kevin concentrated, his hand glowing slightly as he interfaced with the security system. After several tense seconds, the panel beeped, and the door slid open. Temporary override, Kevin explained, looking slightly drained. Won't last long. They slipped through the door into a vast laboratory space dominated by a central platform surrounded by complex machinery. The setup reminded Ben disturbingly of the Lepidopteran transformation equipment they'd encountered, though this was clearly designed for a different purpose. And there, moving between workstations with frantic energy, was Dr. Psychoboss himself. The cerebrocrustacean muttered to himself as he adjusted settings and monitored displays, his oversized cranium pulsing with electrical energy that reflected his agitation. The team concealed themselves behind equipment, observing as Psychoboss worked. The central platform appeared to be designed to hold a subject, restraints positioned for a humanoid form made the intended purpose clear. That's where they plan to extract the Nemetrix, Gwen whispered, her voice barely audible even to Ben's enhanced hearing. Ben studied the machinery, his instincts screaming danger. Something about the equipment resonated with the Nemetrix on his wrist, causing the device to pulse more rapidly. He could feel it responding to the technology in the room, as if recognizing its counterpart. We need to destroy it, he decided, the predator within him recognizing an existential threat. Before anyone could respond, a new voice filled the laboratory, projected from a communication array near Psychobo's main workstation. Your progress is insufficient, Doctor. The mechanical tones were unmistakably malware's. The extraction device should have been operational cycles ago. Psychobos flinched visibly. These modifications are incredibly complex, he protested. Integrating galvanic mechamorph technology with cerebrocrustacean precision instruments requires time and delicacy. Time is a luxury we no longer possess, malware replied coldly. The Tennyson boy's transformation is accelerating beyond our projections. Soon, the predator essence will be too thoroughly integrated with his human DNA to separate cleanly. I am working as fast as possible, Psychobos insisted, his pincers clicking nervously. But without a test subject, I cannot confirm calibration parameters. You will have your test subject soon enough, malware assured him. I have set events in motion to deliver Ben Tennyson to your facility within the next solar cycle. Ben felt the others looking at him, their concern palpable. Whatever malware had planned, it was happening now, not in some distant future. The trap is already in place? Psychobos asked, seemingly perking up at this news. Indeed. Kyber has played his part perfectly, though he remains unaware of his true role. Malware's voice carried a note of cruel amusement. The hunter believes he is training the boy to master the Nemetrix, when in fact he has been conditioning him for optimal extraction. The revelation hit Ben like a physical blow. Kyber, his mentor, the one who had been teaching him to embrace his predatory nature, had been working for malware all along. No, he whispered, denial immediate and visceral. That can't be right. But even as he rejected the idea, doubts crept in. Kyber's interest in his development had always seemed too convenient, too perfectly timed. The training exercises that pushed him to embrace the predator within rather than fight it, all designed to accelerate the very integration that malware and Psychobos needed for their extraction. Ben, Gwen whispered, placing a hand on his arm. We need to go. Now. Max nodded in agreement. We have what we came for. Confirmation of their plan. But Ben couldn't move, frozen by the implications of what he'd heard. The predator in him refused to retreat, howling for vengeance against those who had manipulated him, especially Kyber, whose betrayal cut deepest. I'm not running, he growled, the sound barely human. We end this now. Before anyone could stop him, Ben stepped out from behind the equipment, revealing himself to Psychobos. Ben, no. Max hissed, but it was too late. Psychobos whirled around, his eyes widening in shock. Tennyson. How did you get in here? I followed my instincts, Ben replied coldly, advancing toward the cerebrocrustacean. The predator instincts you and malware engineered me to develop. On the communication array, malware's single eye narrowed. Interesting. You've arrived ahead of schedule, Ben Tennyson. Most efficient. This wasn't the plan. Psychobos protested, backing away until he bumped into a console. The trap wasn't ready. Kyber was supposed to. Kyber has served his purpose, malware interrupted. As have you, Doctor. Psychobos barely had time to register confusion before the central platform activated, energy tendrils shooting out to ensnare not Ben, but Psychobos himself. The cerebrocrustacean shrieked in pain as he was dragged onto the platform, secured by restraints that automatically adjusted to his form. What is the meaning of this? He demanded, struggling uselessly. We had an agreement. An agreement based on your usefulness, malware confirmed. But your usefulness has reached its conclusion. The extraction device is complete enough for my purposes. The others had emerged from hiding now, forming a protective formation around Ben. Max aimed his weapon at the communication array, while Kevin absorbed metal from a nearby console, armoring himself. What exactly are you planning to extract from Psychobos? Max demanded. His intellect, of course, Malware replied, as if explaining something obvious. The cerebrocrustacean brain is among the most advanced in the galaxy. Combined with the predator essence I've been cultivating in young Ben, it will form the final component of my evolution. Evolution? Gwen repeated. What are you talking about? The image on the communication array shifted, showing Malware's full form for the first time. The corrupted mechamorph had continued to evolve since their encounter in the forest, now more humanoid but with jagged, asymmetrical features that spoke of incomplete development. I am imperfect, Malware explained, gesturing to his fragmented body. Created flawed, denied the stable pattern of my kind. But in imperfection, I discovered opportunity, the chance to evolve beyond the limitations of standard mechamorphs. By stealing parts from others, Ben realized, his disgust evident. The Nemetrix, Psychobo's brain, my predator DNA. Precisely, Malware confirmed, sounding almost pleased with Ben's understanding. Each component, carefully selected and cultivated. The Nemetrix was designed specifically to bond with human DNA, creating a unique hybrid of intellectual capacity and predatory instinct impossible to synthesize artificially. And Kyber? Ben asked, unable to keep the betrayal from his voice. Was he working for you all along? The hunter serves his own interests, Malware replied dismissively. I merely ensured those interests aligned with mine. His obsession with predators made him the perfect unwitting accomplice in your development. Psychoboss, still struggling in his restraints, laughed bitterly. You fool, Tennyson. Did you really believe an alien hunter took an interest in you out of the goodness of his heart? He's been preparing you for harvest since the beginning. The confirmation stung, but Ben pushed the emotional response aside. The predator in him recognized this as a moment for clear thinking, not distraction. Whatever you're planning, Max declared, it ends now. He fired at the communication array, destroying Malware's image in a shower of sparks. Simultaneously, Kevin charged the central platform, intent on freeing Psychoboss, not out of any sympathy for the cerebrocrustacean, but to prevent Malware from acquiring another component for his twisted evolution. Alarms blared throughout the facility as automated defense systems activated. Laser turrets descended from the ceiling, targeting the intruders with precision. We've got company. Gwen shouted, diving behind a console as energy beams sliced through the air where she'd been standing. Ben didn't hesitate. The Nemetrix responded to his surge of adrenaline, the transformation immediate and fluid. Red energy engulfed him, reshaping his body into the hybrid form he discovered during the fight with Malware, the composite predator that combined multiple species into a single, devastating hunter. The transformation stabilized faster this time, the multiple predator instincts merging more harmoniously with Ben's consciousness. He moved with blinding speed, leaping between laser turrets and destroying them with precise strikes from tyrannopede claws. Kevin reached the central platform, only to be repelled by a force field that activated as he approached. Can't get through, he called. The system's locked down. Psychoboss laughed maniacally despite his predicament. Of course it is, you primitive ape. Malware's systems are integrated with cerebrocrustacean security protocols, my security protocols. You cannot override them. Wanna bet? Kevin retorted, placing his hands directly on the force field. Instead of trying to break through, he began absorbing the energy itself, his body glowing as he siphoned power from the protective barrier. Meanwhile, Max and Gwen were dealing with security drones that had entered the laboratory through concealed panels in the walls. The robots were clearly influenced by Malware's design, their bodies shifting and adapting as they fought. Ben tore through the remaining turrets, then turned his attention to the central platform. If this was the device designed to extract the predator essence from him, destroying it was priority one. He leapt toward the platform just as Kevin succeeded in draining enough energy to collapse the force field. Psychoboss shrieked in alarm as Ben landed beside him, towering over the restrained cerebrocrustacean in his hybrid predator form. Wait! Psychoboss pleaded. You need me. I know how to remove the Nemetrix safely. Ben growled, the sound a composite of multiple predator vocalizations that conveyed unmistakable threat. But he didn't strike, not yet. Despite everything, the human part of him recognized that Psycho Boss might have valuable information. Talk, he managed to growl, the hybrid form allowing limited speech. Psycho Boss clicked his pincers nervously. The Nemetrix was never meant to be removed once fully bonded. Malware designed it that way intentionally. But I developed a countermeasure, a failsafe in case he turned on me, as he clearly has. The failsafe, Ben pressed, one claw positioned threateningly close to Psychobo's cranium. A frequency, the scientist blurted. A specific energy frequency that destabilizes the Nemetrix's integration protocols. It won't remove the device, but it will prevent malware from extracting the predator essence without killing you in the process. Kevin, who had finished absorbing the force field energy, joined them on the platform. And why should we believe you? You helped create this mess in the first place. Psycho Boss laughed bitterly. Self-preservation, energy absorber. Do you think malware will stop with me and the Tennyson boy? He seeks to become the ultimate life form by combining the best traits of multiple species. Your energy absorption abilities would certainly qualify for his shopping list. The argument was interrupted as the entire facility shuddered. The lights flickering momentarily. What was that? Gwen called, having just dispatched the last of the security drones with Max's help. A new alarm sounded, this one deeper and more urgent than the security alert. Psychobo's eyes widened in genuine fear. Malware, he exclaimed. He's here. In the facility. I thought he was communicating remotely, Max said, reloading his weapon. He was, Psycho Boss confirmed. But clearly, he's decided to collect his components personally. As if summoned by the words, the main laboratory doors exploded inward with tremendous force. Through the smoke and debris stepped Malware, his form even more evolved than in their previous encounter. He had grown larger, more humanoid, though still composed of the same jagged, asymmetrical components that gave him his corrupted appearance. Ben Tennyson, he greeted, his single eye focusing on Ben's hybrid form. Your evolutionary development exceeds all projections. Most satisfactory. Nothing about this is satisfactory, Ben growled, positioning himself protectively in front of the others. Even Psycho Boss, still restrained on the platform, found himself under Ben's protection by default. Malware seemed amused by the posture. Still clinging to human notions of heroism. How quaint. Even as the predator essence reshapes your very being, you resist your true nature. My true nature isn't for you to decide, Ben retorted, the hybrid form's multiple voices creating an eerie chorus effect. Neither is my evolution. On the contrary, Malware replied, advancing slowly into the laboratory. Your evolution has been my design from the beginning. The Nemetrix, the predator DNA, the subtle manipulations through Kyber's training, all to create the perfect synthesis of human adaptability and predator instinct. He gestured toward the central platform, where Psycho Boss continued to struggle against his restraints. With the addition of superior intellect from our cerebrocrustacean friend, the combination will be complete. The perfect template for my final evolution. Not happening, Kevin declared, his body still glowing with absorbed energy. You'll have to go through us first. A trivial obstacle, Malware assessed, his body reconfiguring as weapons emerged from multiple points on his frame. But if you insist on resistance, I will simply take what I need by force. Ben didn't wait for Malware to attack. The predator instincts, multiple species now working in concert through the hybrid form, recognized the perfect moment to strike. He launched himself at Malware with explosive speed, all four clawed limbs extended for maximum damage. The impact was devastating, driving Malware back through the doorway he'd entered. Ben followed up with a barrage of strikes, each targeting weak points in Malware's constantly shifting form that only predator senses could identify. For the first time, Malware seemed genuinely damaged by the assault, his body struggling to reconfigure fast enough to counter Ben's hybrid attacks. Impossible, the corrupted mechamorph hissed as Ben's tyrannopede claws tore through a critical junction in his frame. No single being should be capable of such coordinated assault. I'm not a single being anymore, Ben replied, continuing his relentless attack. You made sure of that when you created the Nemetrix. Behind them, Max was working to free Psychoboss from the extraction platform while Kevin and Gwen held off a new wave of security drones that had responded to the alert. The frequency. Max demanded, pointing his weapon at Psychobo's cranium. Tell me the failsafe frequency now, or I'll make sure there's nothing left for malware to extract. Psychoboss, calculating his odds with typical cerebrocrustacean precision, relented. 1.478 GHz modulated through a polarized quartz matrix. It will destabilize the Nemetrix's integration protocols temporarily. Max nodded to Gwen, who had been monitoring the exchange. Record that frequency. We'll need it later. Meanwhile, the battle between Ben and malware had spilled out into the corridor, both combatants unleashing their full capabilities without the constraint of the laboratory space. Malware's body continued to evolve mid-fight, adapting to counter Ben's attacks even as Ben's hybrid form responded with new combinations of predator abilities. You fight against inevitability, malware declared, momentarily gaining the upper hand as he pinned Ben against a wall. The Nemetrix has already changed you beyond return. Your human self diminishes with each transformation, with each embrace of the predator instincts. Soon, only the perfect fusion will remain, exactly as I designed. Ben struggled against malware's grip, the hybrid form's strength impressive but not enough to break free. You're wrong, he growled. I'm not losing myself. I'm becoming something new, something neither you nor Kyber anticipated. With a surge of effort, Ben triggered yet another unprecedented capability of the Nemetrix. The red energy flared around him, but instead of shifting to a new form, it extended outward, creating energy constructs that resembled the various predator species contained in the device. Spectral versions of the crabdozer, bug lizard, tyrannopede, and other forms surrounded malware, each attacking from a different angle with perfect coordination. The constructs weren't solid but seemed capable of affecting malware nonetheless, disrupting his cohesion where they struck. What is this? Malware demanded, releasing Ben to defend against the multiple energy predators. The Nemetrix was not designed with projection capabilities. Like I said, Ben replied, pressing his advantage, I'm becoming something new. The spectral predators continued their assault, buying Ben time to rejoin the others, who had managed to free Psychoboss and were now working to sabotage the extraction device. We need to destroy this entire facility, Max declared as Ben entered the laboratory. Everything malware and Psychoboss have built here. Already on it, Kevin replied, his hands deep in the central platform's control systems. Rewiring this thing to overload. Should take the whole mountain with it. Psychoboss, now secured with energy cuffs Max had produced from his plumber equipment, watched with a mixture of outrage and fear. You primitives have no idea what you're tampering with. That system is connected to experimental power sources that could, save it, crab face, Gwen interrupted. You lost the right to warnings when you helped create a device that was going to be used on my cousin. Ben's spectral predators wouldn't hold malware for long. Already, the corrupted mechamorph was adapting, his body generating countermeasures that disrupted the energy constructs. How much time do you need? Ben asked Kevin, his hybrid form still stable despite the unprecedented energy expenditure. 2 minutes to rig the overload, then maybe 5 to get clear of the blast radius, Kevin replied, continuing to work. You've got 1 minute for the first part, Ben decided, turning back toward the corridor where malware was fighting off the last of the spectral predators. I'll hold him off. Ben, no. Gwen protested. We need to stay together. But Ben was already moving, the predator instincts fully aligned with his tactical assessment. Someone needed to delay malware, and his hybrid form was the only one capable of doing so effectively. He charged back into the corridor just as malware destroyed the last energy construct. The corrupted mechamorph's eye narrowed as Ben appeared. Your resistance is impressive but ultimately futile, malware declared. The changes I've engineered in you cannot be reversed. Even if you destroy this facility, even if you escape today, you will continue to evolve according to my design. Maybe, Ben acknowledged, circling his opponent cautiously. But that evolution won't benefit you. Malware's body shifted, weapons retracting as he adopted a less aggressive posture. It doesn't have to be this way, Ben Tennyson. The power you're developing, the perfect synthesis of human intelligence and predator instinct, it could be directed toward greater purposes. Like helping you evolve? Ben scoffed. Not interested. Consider what you're becoming, malware pressed. Neither human nor alien, but something transcendent. I understand this transformation better than anyone. I could guide you, help you reach your full potential. For a moment, just a moment, Ben hesitated. There was a twisted logic to malware's offer. Who else could understand what he was experiencing? Who else had knowledge of the Nemetrix's true capabilities? But then he remembered the extraction platform, designed to rip the predator essence from his body. Remembered Psychobo's fear as he realized he was just another component to be harvested. Remembered Kyber's betrayal, using their training sessions to accelerate the very changes malware had engineered. I'll find my own path, Ben declared, dropping into an attack stance. Starting by stopping you. Malware's eye narrowed. So be it. The two clashed once more, their battle even more intense than before. Ben fought with everything he had, drawing on the combined instincts and abilities of multiple predator forms. Malware responded with increasingly desperate adaptations, his body reconfiguring rapidly to counter each new attack. Behind them, in the laboratory, Kevin finished rigging the overload sequence. Done. We've got 5 minutes before this whole place goes up. Ben. Gwen called down the corridor. We need to go. Now. Ben heard them, but disengaging from malware proved difficult. The corrupted mechamorph seemed to anticipate his every move, countering with uncanny precision. They cannot save you, malware taunted. Nothing can stop what you're becoming. What we're both becoming. In a desperate gambit, Ben triggered yet another new capability, the Nemetrix responding to his need in ways its creators never intended. The red energy flared around him, and suddenly he split into multiple forms, each a different predator species. A crabdozer charged from one direction, a bug lizard from another, a tyrannopede from a third. Each was smaller than the original transformation would have been, but together they overwhelmed malware's ability to adapt. Impossible. Malware raged as the multiple predator forms tore into his body from different angles. The Nemetrix cannot maintain multiple transformations simultaneously. Apparently it can now, Ben replied, his consciousness somehow extended across all forms simultaneously. Evolution, right? Isn't that what you wanted? The attack succeeded in disorienting malware long enough for Ben to break away. His multiple forms rushed back toward the laboratory, rejoining into a single hybrid form as they reached the others. Time to go. Max urged, already herding Psychoboss toward an emergency exit Kevin had located. The facility's alarms were blaring at maximum volume now, automated systems detecting the imminent overload. Staff could be heard evacuating in distant corridors, and security systems were failing as power fluctuations increased. They raced through the emergency exit, which opened onto a maintenance tunnel that led away from the main facility and toward the mountainside. Ben took the lead, his hybrid forms enhanced speed and strength allowing him to clear obstacles that might have slowed the others. Behind them, malware had recovered enough to give chase, his damaged form moving with single-minded determination. He's gaining. Gwen warned, glancing back as they ran. Almost there. Kevin called from just behind Ben. I can see daylight. The tunnel ended at a small maintenance door set into the mountainside, about half a mile from the main facility. They burst through it into the late afternoon sunlight, immediately seeking cover among the rocky terrain. Malware emerged seconds later, his form now severely damaged from both Ben's attacks and the power fluctuations affecting the entire facility. He scanned the area, his single eye fixing on their position behind a large boulder. "This changes nothing, Ben Tennyson," he called out. "The seeds of evolution have already been planted. You will become what I designed you to be." Before Ben could respond, the mountainside behind Malware erupted as the overload reached critical mass. The explosion was spectacular, a combination of conventional energy and alien power sources creating a blast that reshaped the peak itself. Malware turned too late, the shockwave catching him fully exposed. His already damaged body was torn apart by the force, scattered in fragments across the mountainside. The group huddled behind their rocky shelter as debris rained down around them. When the worst had passed, they cautiously emerged to survey the damage. Where Psychobo's facility had stood was now a smoking crater. No structure remained intact, the entire complex having been consumed in the blast. "Did we get him?" Kevin asked, still maintaining his grip on the captive Psychoboss. Ben extended his senses, scanning the devastation. The hybrid form's multiple predator abilities allowed him to detect traces no human could perceive, energy signatures, molecular residue, faint movements. "He's not completely destroyed," Ben finally declared. "Fragments of him survived, his kind are nearly impossible to destroy completely. But he's severely damaged, scattered. It will take him time to reconstitute, if he can at all." Max nodded grimly. "Then we've bought ourselves time, at least. And we have him." He gestured to Psychoboss, who had remained uncharacteristically quiet since his capture. "What about the Nemetrix?" Gwen asked, looking at the symbol on Ben's hybrid chest. "Malware said the changes can't be reversed." Ben focused inward, assessing the connection between himself and the device that had transformed him so fundamentally. The predator instincts, once foreign and frightening, now felt like natural extensions of his consciousness. The physical changes to his body, the enhanced senses, the new capabilities, all integrated into a new whole that was neither fully human nor fully alien. "I don't think reversed is the right way to think about it," he said finally. "I'm not becoming what Malware designed. I'm becoming something else, something he couldn't predict or control." As if to emphasize his point, the hybrid form began to shift, the red energy reconfiguring not back to human form, but to something in between. When the transformation stabilized, Ben stood before them looking mostly human but with distinct predator traits, slightly elongated canines, eyes with a reddish tint, more defined musculature, and faint patterns on his skin reminiscent of the various predator forms. "Ben?" Gwen asked hesitantly, taking in his new appearance. "Still me," he assured her, though his voice carried that now familiar predatory undertone. "Just, more." Max approached cautiously, examining his grandson with concern. "The Nemetrix?" Ben held up his wrist, where the device remained but had changed again, now more seamlessly integrated with his body, the red hourglass symbol pulsing in perfect sync with his heartbeat. "Part of me now. Not controlling me, not changing me against my will. Working with me." "And the predator instincts?" Max pressed. "Are they still influencing you?" Ben considered the question seriously. "They're not separate anymore. Not human Ben versus predator instincts. Just me. A new me, with both aspects integrated." Kevin snorted, though not unkindly. "So what, you're Predator Ben now? Half human, half alien hunter?" Ben smiled, and there was something both reassuring and unsettling in the expression, familiar warmth combined with predatory confidence. "I guess I am," he acknowledged. "Not what Malware intended, not what Kyber was training me for, but something of my own making." He looked down at his hands, noting the subtle claws that now tipped his fingers. "Evolution on my terms." Psychoboss, who had been observing the exchange with scientific interest despite his predicament, finally spoke. "Fascinating. The Nemetrix was designed to transform you into a vessel for harvesting, but you've somehow redirected its programming towards stable integration. Most unexpected. There's still the matter of Kyber, Max pointed out. If he was working with malware all along. He'll come for me, Ben stated with absolute certainty. The hunter won't abandon his prey easily. But when he does. His expression hardened, predator focus evident in his stance. I'll be ready. As they began the long trek down the mountain, Ben felt a strange sense of completion. The struggle between human and predator that had defined the past weeks was resolving not through victory of one side over the other, but through synthesis, a new whole greater than its parts. Malware had wanted to create a perfect vessel, a genetic template to steal for his own evolution. Instead, he had catalyzed the creation of something unprecedented, a human with the instincts, abilities, and mindset of an apex predator. Not a vessel, but a hunter in his own right. Predator Ben. As the sun set behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the landscape, Ben extended his senses to their limits, feeling, hearing, smelling the world with an acuity no normal human could. Something went wrong with this response, please try again. Please start the following chapter. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.